Hello friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. So, one of the calls that still keeps me up at night happened during what we call a ground blizzard situation. That's when the snow isn't necessarily falling from the sky anymore, but the wind is so strong it picks up everything that's already on the ground and throws it around like a washing machine. Visibility drops to maybe 10, 15 feet if you're lucky. And this was in late February, around 11 at night, when I got the dispatch call. I'd been with Wyoming Highway Patrol for about 6 years at that point. Long enough to know how bad the winters could get out here, but not quite long enough to have seen everything. You think you have after a few seasons, but Wyoming has a way of surprising you. The state's got more highway miles per capita than almost anywhere else in the country, and during winter, a lot of those miles turn into death traps. Wind gusts hit 70, 80 miles per hour out on the open plains. Semi-trucks flip over like toys. Cars slide off into ravines where nobody finds them till spring. That night, I was working the stretch of Highway 287 between Lander and Muddy Gap. It's one of those routes that looks fine on a map, just a line connecting two small dots. But when you're actually out there, you realize how alone you really are. No towns, no gas stations, just sagebrush and wind and about 60 miles of two-lane blacktop cutting through empty country. The thermometer in my patrol vehicle read -18. That's before wind chill. I had the heater cranked as high as it would go, but the cold still found ways to creep in through the door seals and floor vents. My coffee had gone cold in the cup holder within about 10 minutes of pouring it. That's the kind of night it was. Dispatch came through around 11:23 p.m. The voice was Tessa Ruiar, though she wasn't working my case that night, just passing along information from the county dispatcher. She said a rancher about 12 miles north of my position had called in what he thought might be a single-vehicle accident. He'd been driving home from Lander and saw what looked like taillights off the side of the road, pointing the wrong direction. He didn't stop because of the weather, but he called it in when he got home. I acknowledged and started heading north. The wind was pushing my vehicle around even at 30 miles per hour. Snow snakes were sliding across the highway, these weird formations that look almost alive in your headlights. The road itself was a mix of ice and packed snow, with occasional bare patches where the wind had scoured everything down to asphalt. Not ideal conditions for emergency response, but that's the job. I radioed in that I was en route and asked if the rancher had seen any people near the vehicle. Dispatch said no, just the lights. That could mean a lot of things. Maybe the driver was still inside. Maybe they'd walked away looking for help. Maybe they were hurt and unconscious. You learn not to speculate too much. You just get there and deal with whatever you find. The drive took me about 18 minutes. I had to slow down twice when the wind got so bad I couldn't see the road at all. During one of those moments, sitting there in near whiteout conditions with my flashers on, I remember thinking about how easy it would be to just disappear out here. How you could slide off the road into a ditch and nobody would find you for days, maybe weeks. Your vehicle would just become another snowdrift, another shape in the landscape. When I reached the approximate location, I started scanning both sides of the highway. The rancher had said north of mile marker 34, which put it somewhere in a stretch where the land flattened out into what we call high desert plains. No trees, no hills, just flat ground that seemed to go on forever. And on a night like that, with the snow blowing horizontal across your field of vision, it all looked the same. I almost missed it. The taillights were dim, barely visible through the snow, and they were about 40 yards off the highway on the east side. I pulled over as carefully as I could, putting my vehicle between the wreck and any possible northbound traffic, though I hadn't seen another car in over 20 minutes. I hit my light bar and grabbed my flashlight before stepping out into the wind. The cold hit me like a physical thing. It wasn't just cold, it was aggressive. The wind drove tiny ice particles into any exposed skin. I had my patrol coat zipped up and my hat pulled down low, but within seconds my face was numb. The wind noise was so loud I could barely hear my own radio when dispatch checked in. I confirmed my arrival and said I was approaching the vehicle. Walking those 40 yards felt like walking on another planet. The snow was knee-deep in places, crusty and hard-packed in others. My flashlight beam didn't penetrate very far through the blowing snow. Every few steps I'd look back to make sure I could still see my patrol vehicle's lights, because stories about troopers getting disoriented and lost in conditions like this weren't uncommon. The vehicle was a white Toyota Camry, maybe 10 years old, sitting at an odd angle with the front end lower than the rear. It had slid off the highway and come to rest in a shallow depression. The engine was off, but the headlights were still on, throwing 2 weak yellow beams out into the darkness. The taillights too, which is what the rancher had seen. That meant the battery was still good, or at least it had been when the driver turned everything on. I approached from the driver's side, calling out as I got closer. "Wyoming Highway Patrol. Anyone in the vehicle?" No response. Just the howl of wind and the hiss of snow hitting my coat. I reached the driver's door and wiped snow off the window to look inside. Empty. Both front seats, empty. I tried the door and found it unlocked. That was interesting. I pulled it open, leaning in to check the back seat while keeping one foot planted outside in case I needed to move quickly. You never know what you're going to find. Back seat was empty too. No visible blood, no signs of struggle. The keys were still in the ignition, turned to the accessory position, which explained why the lights were on. I pulled my radio and reported that the vehicle was abandoned and I was checking the immediate area for the driver. Dispatch acknowledged. Then I started looking around the car more carefully, playing my flashlight over the ground. That's when I found the tracks. They were footprints, partially filled with snow, but still visible as shallow depressions leading away from the driver's door. I followed them with my flashlight beam, watching as they moved away from the highway, heading east into the empty darkness. That didn't make sense. If you're in an accident and you need help, you go toward the road, not away from it. You try to flag down passing cars. You don't walk out into open country in a ground blizzard. But the footprints were clear. One set looked like they came from boots, probably men's size 10 or 11 based on the length and width. They led straight away from the vehicle in a line that was almost perfectly perpendicular to the highway. I stood there for a moment doing the mental math. The rancher had called this in around 11:15, and it was now 11:43. That meant these tracks could be anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes old, maybe older. In this wind, it was actually surprising they were still visible at all. I keyed my radio again. "Dispatch, I've got one set of tracks leading east from the vehicle. Looks like a single adult, possibly male. I'm going to follow and see if I can locate them." There was a pause. Then Myra Kincaid's voice came through. She was a sheriff's deputy from Fremont County, who sometimes monitored our channel when things were quiet at the county level. "Reddick, this is Deputy Kincaid. You might want to wait for backup on that. Weather's getting worse." I looked back toward my patrol vehicle. The lights were still visible, but barely. The snow was falling harder now, or maybe it was just blowing harder. Either way, Myra had a point. But I also knew that if someone was out here walking around in negative 18-degree weather, Their survival time was measured in minutes, not hours. Without proper gear, you'd be hypothermic within 15 to 20 minutes. Dead within an hour. Copy that, deputy. But if someone's out here, they don't have time for me to wait. I'm following the tracks. Understood. Keep your radio on. I started walking. The tracks led in a straight line across the flat ground, and I followed them, sweeping my flashlight back and forth to make sure I didn't lose the trail. Every 10 or 15 steps, I'd look back to keep my patrol vehicle's lights in sight. The cold was intense. My fingers were already getting stiff inside my gloves, and I could feel ice forming in my mustache from my breath freezing. After about 100 yards, the tracks were still going in the same direction. Straight as an arrow. No wandering, no stumbling, no signs of confusion or disorientation. That struck me as odd, because people who are hypothermic or in shock don't usually walk in straight lines. They wander, they circle back, they lose their sense of direction. But these tracks just kept going, like whoever made them knew exactly where they were headed. I kept following. 200 yards now. The wind was pushing me sideways with each gust, and the cold was starting to penetrate through my coat. My face was completely numb. I pulled my coat collar up higher and kept my head down, checking the tracks every few feet to make sure I was still on them. At around 300 yards, something changed. The tracks didn't stop exactly, but they became confused. It looked like the person had stopped walking and started moving around in a small area, maybe 10 feet across. There were multiple overlapping prints, some deeper than others, like they'd been standing in one spot and shifting their weight. I played my flashlight over the area carefully, trying to understand what I was looking at. Then I saw the second set of tracks. These were different, smaller. They came from the north, from a direction that was almost 90 degrees to the path I'd been following. They approached the first set of tracks, and then both sets moved together for maybe 20 feet before stopping again in another confused jumble of prints. I stood there, in the wind, trying to make sense of it. 2 people now. The driver from the Camry, and someone else. Who? Where did they come from? There was nothing out here. No houses, no buildings, no other vehicles for miles. And yet, here were these tracks, appearing out of nowhere. I radioed it in. "Dispatch, I've got a second set of tracks now. Smaller, possibly female. They converge with the first set and then both continue east." Myra's voice came back immediately. "Reddick, where did the second set come from?" "Unknown. They appear from the north, no visible starting point." There was a long pause, then, "Say again?" "The tracks just... They start in the middle of nowhere, like someone was dropped there." "Copy." Another pause. "Reddick, I'm going to head your way, ETA about 30 minutes. "Appreciate it." I kept following the tracks. Both sets now, side by side, still heading east. The wind was getting worse and the cold was starting to affect my thinking. I could feel that fog that comes with early hypothermia, that sense of detachment where your thoughts slow down and simple things become complicated. I knew I needed to turn back soon, but I also knew that if these people were still out here, they were in serious trouble. At around 500 yards from the Camry, the track stopped. Not gradually, not in a confused pattern like before. They just stopped. I stood there, sweeping my flashlight in circles looking for any continuation, any sign of where these people had gone. Nothing. The tracks ended in the middle of open ground with nothing around them. No vehicle, no structure, no other prints leading away. Just empty snow. I knelt down to examine the final prints more carefully. They weren't smudged or disturbed in any unusual way. They looked like normal footprints, just the last ones. Like whoever made them had simply ceased to exist at that spot. A gust of wind hit me so hard I almost fell over. When I stood back up, I pulled my radio. "Dispatch, Tracks have terminated approximately 500 yards east of the vehicle. No sign of the individuals. Terminated? You mean they ended? Affirmative. No continuation visible. Reddick, you need to head back. Weather Service just upgraded the warning. Wind chills are hitting -40. You can't stay out there. She was right. I could barely feel my feet anymore, and my hands were shaking so bad I could hardly hold the radio. I took one more look around, doing a full 360, but there was nothing out there. Just wind and snow and darkness. I started walking back, following my own tracks, using them as a guide back to the Camry. The walk back seemed longer. The cold was worse, or maybe I was just more aware of it now. I kept my head down and focused on putting one foot in front of the other. Don't think. Just walk. That's the survival instinct kicking in, the part of your brain that knows if you stop moving, you're dead. I made it back to the Camry in about 10 minutes. My tracks from before were already getting filled in by the blowing snow. Another 30 minutes and they'd be gone completely. I checked the vehicle one more time, looking for anything I might have missed. Registration showed it belonged to a man named David Cortez from Riverton. I copied down the information and radioed it in. Dispatch said they'd run the name. I made my way back to my patrol vehicle, got inside, and cranked the heat as high as it would go. My hands and feet were burning as the circulation came back. That's actually a good sign because it means you're not seriously frostbitten, but it hurt like hell. I sat there for a few minutes just breathing, letting my body temperature come back up. The radio crackled. Unit 14, this is dispatch. Registration comes back to David Cortez, 37 years old, lives in Riverton. Running him through NCIC now. Copy. I looked out at the Camry, its lights still glowing weakly through the snow. Where did you go, David? And who went with you? The radio crackled again, but this time it was different. Static, but underneath the static something else. It sounded almost like no. I keyed my mic. Dispatch, radio check. Loud and clear, Unit 14. Copy. But I kept hearing it. Underneath the normal radio traffic, underneath the static from the storm, there was something that almost sounded like a voice. Faint. Distant. And it kept repeating something that sounded like a name. Myra. I told myself it was just interference from the storm. Radio waves do weird things in weather like this, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was hearing something I shouldn't be hearing, something that wasn't meant for me. I waited in my vehicle, watching the Camry, waiting for Deputy Kincaid to arrive. The wind rocked my patrol vehicle in steady rhythms. Snow built up on the windshield, and somewhere out there in the darkness, 2 sets of footprints led to nowhere. That's when I started wondering if I was really alone. Deputy Myra Kincaid arrived about 40 minutes later. I saw her headlights coming from the south, moving slow and careful through the blowing snow. She pulled up behind my patrol vehicle, and I watched her step out into the wind. Even from inside my vehicle, I could see her leaning into it, fighting to stay upright as she made her way to my driver's side window. I rolled it down about halfway. The cold air rushed in immediately. "Hell of a night," she said. Her face was already red from the wind, ice crystals forming on her eyebrows. "That's putting it mild. Show me what you found." I grabbed my flashlight and stepped back out into the cold. My body had just started to warm up, and now I was throwing it right back into the freezer. We walked together toward the Camry, our flashlights cutting weak beams through the snow. I had to lean close to her ear to be heard over the wind. Vehicles registered to David Cortez, Riverton resident. Keys in the ignition, lights on, but nobody inside. Family been notified? Dispatch is working on it. Haven't heard back yet. We reached the Camry and I showed her the interior, same as I'd found it. She looked it over with her flashlight, checking the glove box under the seats, popping the trunk. Nothing unusual. No blood, no weapons, no drugs. Just an ordinary car that had slid off an icy highway. You said you found tracks? This way. I led her around to the driver's side and pointed my flashlight at the ground. The footprints were still there, though they'd filled in more since I'd first seen them. You could still make out the basic shapes, still see the direction they were heading. They go east, I said. Straight line for about 500 yards, then they just stop. Stop? How? Stop like they end, like the person making them disappeared. Myra looked at me. Even in the dark, I could see the skepticism on her face. People don't just disappear, Reddick. I know what I saw. Show me. We started following the tracks. I led the way, retracing my earlier path, both of us leaning into the wind. The cold was worse now, if that was possible. The thermometer in my vehicle had read -23 when Myra arrived. With wind chill, we were probably pushing -50. At that temperature, exposed skin freezes in under 5 minutes. Your lungs hurt when you breathe. Your eyes water and the tears freeze on your cheeks. We walked in silence, saving our breath. About halfway to where the tracks ended, Myra grabbed my arm and pointed north with her flashlight. I followed the beam and saw what she was pointing at. The second set of tracks coming in from the darkness. Those weren't there before? She asked. They were. I told dispatch. 2 sets of tracks converge, then continue together. She walked over to where the second set of prints started, or appeared to start. She knelt down, examining them closely with her flashlight. I stood watch, scanning the darkness around us. The wind was creating shapes in the blowing snow, shadows that moved and shifted. Your eyes play tricks on you in conditions like this. You see things that aren't there. These are different, Myra said. Smaller boot. Woman size 7 or 8, I'd guess. And look at the depth. I knelt beside her. She was right. The second set of prints was shallower than the first, suggesting someone lighter. But what caught my attention was something else. The spacing between the steps was perfectly regular. Not the stumbling, uneven gait of someone who was cold or disoriented. These were measured, deliberate steps. Whoever this was, Myra said, they knew where they were going. We stood up and continued following the tracks. Both sets now, side by side, heading east into nothing. I kept checking over my shoulder, making sure I could still see the flashing lights from our vehicles. They were getting harder to see. The storm was intensifying. At around 400 yards, Myra stopped. Reddick. I turned. She was pointing her flashlight at the ground between us and the tracks. There was something dark there, a small object half buried in the snow. We approached it carefully. Myra knelt and brushed the snow away. It was a cell phone. Newer model, maybe a year or 2 old. The screen was cracked, but it powered on when Myra pressed the button. No signal, which wasn't surprising out here, but the battery was at 67%. The lock screen showed a photo of a man and a woman, both smiling, standing in front of what looked like the Grand Tetons. This could be Cortez's phone, I said. Why would he drop it? Maybe he didn't mean to. Maybe it fell out of his pocket. Myra pressed the emergency call button on the lock screen. Even without unlocking it, you can make emergency calls. But nothing happened, no signal. She tried twice more with the same result, then slipped the phone into an evidence bag she'd brought from her vehicle. We kept walking. The tracks continued their straight line east. At 500 yards, right where I'd stopped before, they ended. Myra saw it the same way I had. 2 sets of prints, clear and distinct, and then nothing. Just flat snow with no continuation. She walked in circles around the final prints, searching for any indication of where the people might have gone. I did the same, expanding my search radius to 20 yards, then 30. Nothing. No tracks leading away. No signs of a struggle. No drag marks. Nothing. "This doesn't make sense," Myra said. "I know. Could the wind have filled in their tracks? Maybe they kept walking and we just can't see where they went?" I pointed my flashlight back the way we'd come. Our own tracks were still clearly visible, even though we'd made them just 10 minutes ago. "If our tracks are still here, theirs should be too." Myra was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Maybe they got picked up, another vehicle." "Out here? In this? It's possible. We didn't see any other vehicle tracks near the highway. So, what are you saying? They just vanished?" I didn't answer because I didn't have an answer. We stood there in the wind, two law enforcement officers looking at something that shouldn't exist, empty ground where there should have been people. That's when my radio crackled. It was dispatch, but the signal was breaking up badly. Static washed over the words, making them almost unintelligible. "Unit, copy, static, Cortez, static, missing person, static." I keyed my mic. "Dispatch, you're breaking up. Repeat." More static, then barely audible. "David Cortez, reported missing. Static, 3 weeks ago." I looked at Myra. She'd heard it too. "Say again, dispatch. David Cortez was reported missing when?" 3. Static, weeks, static, 3 weeks. The Camry had been sitting out here for maybe a few hours at most, based on the battery life and the amount of snow that had accumulated on it. But the owner had been reported missing 3 weeks ago? "Dispatch, confirm that registration. David Cortez from Riverton?" The response was pure static. I tried again. Nothing. I checked my radio. The display showed a signal, but no matter how many times I keyed the mic, I couldn't get through. Myra tried her radio with the same result. Dead air except for static. "Storm must be interfering," she said. "Maybe. Or maybe something else." We started walking back toward the vehicles. The wind had picked up even more, and the cold was becoming dangerous. My face was completely numb. My hands were stiff inside my gloves. Every breath hurt my lungs. Myra was in the same shape. I could tell by the way she was moving, slow and mechanical. Halfway back, she grabbed my arm and pointed. I followed her gesture and felt my stomach drop. There were new tracks, not following our path but parallel to it, maybe 30 yards to the south. Fresh tracks, barely filled in, moving in the same direction we were. Heading back toward the highway. "Those weren't there before," I said. "I know." We altered our course, angling toward the new tracks. As we got closer, I could see them more clearly in our flashlight beams. 2 sets again. Same pattern as before. One larger, one smaller. Same stride length, same spacing. "Reddick," Myra's voice was tight. "Those look exactly like the other tracks." She was right. The tread pattern, the size, the depth, everything matched. It was like the same 2 people had walked back along a parallel path while we'd been standing at the point where their first tracks had ended. "That's impossible," I said. "We would have seen them. There's nowhere to hide out here." "I know." We followed the new tracks back toward the highway. They stayed parallel to our original path, never deviating, never showing any signs of confusion or wandering. Just 2 people walking with purpose through a ground blizzard and negative 50-degree wind chill. When we got within sight of the vehicles, the tracks veered south, away from the Camry and away from our patrol units. They disappeared into the darkness, heading roughly toward where the Sweetwater River ran, about 3 miles south. "We can't follow them," Myra said. "Not in this. We need to get back, warm up, and call for additional units." She was right, but I didn't want to stop. Something about those tracks bothered me in a way I couldn't quite articulate. They were wrong somehow. Not just the impossibility of them appearing while we were out there, but something else, something in the way they looked, the way they moved across the landscape. We made it back to my patrol vehicle and got inside. I started the engine and we both sat there in silence, letting the heater blast us while we waited for feeling to return to our extremities. Myra pulled out her radio and tried to raise dispatch. Still nothing but static. "We're being blocked," she said. "Weather shouldn't interfere this much." I tried my radio. Same result. Then I tried my cell phone. No signal, which was normal for this stretch of highway. Myra checked hers. Also, no signal. "We should head back to town," she said. "Get backup, get proper search equipment. We can't do anything more out here tonight." I looked out at the Camry, its lights still glowing through the snow. "What about the vehicle?" "Leave it. It's not going anywhere. We'll come back in daylight with a recovery team." I knew she was right, but something felt wrong about leaving. Like we were abandoning something important, though I couldn't say what. I put the patrol vehicle in gear and started to pull away when Myra grabbed my arm. "Look." I followed her gaze. There was someone standing next to the Camry. A figure, dark against the snow, barely visible through the blowing wind. It was just standing there, not moving, not waving for help, just standing. I threw the vehicle in park and grabbed my flashlight. "Stay here." "Like hell." We both got out and started toward the figure. I called out, "Wyoming Highway Patrol, stay where you are." The figure didn't respond, didn't move. As we got closer, I could make out more details. It was a man, medium height, wearing jeans and a light jacket. No hat, no gloves. He was just standing there in -50-degree weather with barely any cold weather gear. "Sir, are you David Cortez?" No response. We were about 20 feet away now, close enough to see his face. His skin was pale, almost gray. His eyes were open, but he wasn't looking at us. He was looking past us, looking at something in the distance that we couldn't see. "Sir, we're here to help you. Are you injured?" Myra moved to approach him, and I put my hand on her shoulder. Something wasn't right. The man wasn't shivering. When you're hypothermic, your body shivers uncontrollably in the early stages. It's an automatic response trying to generate heat, but this man was perfectly still. "Sir, can you hear me?" The man's lips moved. No sound came out at first, just a slight movement. Then, barely audible over the wind, a single word. "Cold. We need to get you warmed up. Come with us to the vehicle." I stepped forward to guide him, reaching out to take his arm. The moment my hand touched his jacket, he collapsed, just folded straight down into the snow like someone had cut his strings. I dropped down beside him, checking for a pulse. His skin was ice cold under my fingers. Literally felt like touching frozen meat. "Myra, call for medical. Radio's still dead." I rolled him onto his back and started checking his vitals. No pulse I could find, no breathing. His eyes were still open, staring up at nothing. I started chest compressions, counting out loud, trying to get his heart going again. Myra knelt on his other side, tilting his head back to prepare for rescue breathing. That's when I saw his hand. His fingers were black, not frostbite black, which takes hours to develop. This was different. The discoloration stopped sharply at his wrists, like someone had dipped his hands in black ink, and there was no swelling, no blistering, none of the usual signs of severe frostbite. "Reddick, look at this." Myra had pulled his jacket open. His chest was the same. The skin was gray and mottled, with dark patches that looked almost like bruising but weren't quite right. And he was rigid. Not the normal muscle tension you get with death, but actually frozen solid. "How long would it take for a body to freeze like this?" she asked. "Hours? Maybe longer in these temperatures." He was walking around 30 seconds ago. I sat back on my heels, trying to process what I was seeing. The man had been standing, had spoken to us, and then collapsed and turned into what looked like someone who'd been frozen solid for half a day. "This isn't right," I said. "No shit." I stood up and backed away from the body. My mind was trying to find rational explanations and coming up empty. People don't freeze solid in seconds. Bodies don't develop advanced hypothermia symptoms that fast. This wasn't possible. Myra stood up beside me. "We need to go. Now. We can't just leave him. He's dead, Reddick. Has been for a while based on how he looks. We need to get out of here and call this in properly." I knew she was right, but I couldn't stop looking at the body, at the way his eyes were still open, still staring at nothing, at the black fingers and the gray skin and the impossibility of it all. That's when I saw the second figure. This one was farther away, maybe 50 yards south of the Camry, standing in the same position as the first man had been. Just standing there, not moving. It was smaller than the first figure. Female, I thought. "Myra, I see her." We both raised our flashlights. The beams barely reached that far through the snow, but I could make out enough details to see that it was a woman. Dark hair, same inadequate clothing, same stillness. "Ma'am, Wyoming Highway Patrol." The woman didn't respond, didn't move, just stood there like a statue in the blowing snow. I started walking toward her. Myra called after me, but I ignored her. I needed to know what was happening, needed to understand what we were dealing with. The cold didn't matter anymore. The danger didn't matter. I just needed to know. As I got closer to the woman, I could see her face more clearly. She was young, maybe late 20s. Pretty features, though they had the same gray pallor as the man. Her eyes were open, looking past me just like his had been. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her lips moved. The same barely audible word. "Cold. We're going to help you. Just stay right there." I reached out toward her, and she collapsed just like the man had. Straight down into the snow. No attempt to catch herself. No transition. Just standing 1 second and on the ground the next. I knelt beside her, already knowing what I'd find. No pulse. No breathing. Frozen solid. The same black fingers. The same gray skin. Dead. But somehow she'd been standing and speaking just moments before. Myra reached my side. "We're leaving, right now. There might be more of them. I don't care. This is beyond us. We need help." She grabbed my arm and pulled me to my feet. We backed away from the woman's body, both of us scanning the darkness around us, looking for more figures, more impossible things standing in the snow. The walk back to my patrol vehicle felt like it took forever. Every shadow looked like a person. Every gust of wind sounded like a voice. My mind was trying to reject what I'd seen, trying to find logical explanations, but there weren't any. We'd just watched 2 people die in front of us, except they'd already been dead, already been frozen. We got to my vehicle and climbed inside. I locked the doors, which was ridiculous because what was I locking them against? I put the vehicle in gear and started driving south, away from the Camry, away from the bodies, away from whatever the hell was happening out there. We drove in silence for about 5 minutes before my radio crackled to life. Clear signal this time. No static. Dispatch's voice came through normal as anything. "Unit 14, what's your status?" I picked up the mic, and my hand was shaking. "Dispatch, this is Unit 14. We have 2 deceased individuals at the scene. Request backup and medical examiner." "Copy that, Unit 14. Are you and Deputy Kincaid safe?" "Affirmative. We're heading back to Lander. 10-4. Additional units are en route to your location." I set the mic down and focused on driving. The snow was still falling. The wind still howling, but at least I could see the road. At least we were moving away from that place. Myra was quiet beside me. After a while, she said, Did that really just happen? Yeah. Those people were already dead. They had to be. I know. So, how were they standing? How were they talking? I didn't answer because I didn't know. Nobody did. Some things don't have answers you can put in a report. We drove through the darkness, the heater blasting, both of us trying to warm up body parts that had nothing to do with physical temperature. Behind us, somewhere in the snow and wind, two bodies lay frozen in impossible positions. And somewhere out there, the tracks we'd followed still ended in the middle of nowhere, as if the people who made them had simply ceased to exist. The radio crackled again. This time it was just static, but underneath the static I swear I heard it again. That voice, faint and distant, barely perceptible. But there. Myra. I looked over at Deputy Kincaid. She was staring straight ahead, not reacting. Didn't seem to hear it. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe the cold had affected me more than I thought. Or maybe something out there in the dark knew her name and was calling it. We made it back to Lander around 1:30 in the morning. The Fremont County Sheriff's Office was a low brick building on the east side of town, lights on in the windows despite the hour. That's the thing about law enforcement in Wyoming. The night shift never really ends. There's always someone awake, always someone monitoring the radio, always someone ready to respond when things go wrong. I pulled into the parking lot and killed the engine. Neither of us moved for a moment. Just sat there in the warmth, listening to the heater fan, not wanting to go back out into the cold, not wanting to have to explain what we'd just seen. "You ready for this?" Myra asked. "No. Me neither." We went inside. Sheriff Burke was waiting for us in the main office. A big man in his early 60s with gray hair and a face like weathered leather. He'd been sheriff for almost 20 years, seen just about everything there was to see in this part of Wyoming, or so he thought. "Reddick, Myra, you two look like hell." "Feel worse," I said. "Sit down. Tell me what happened." We sat. I let Myra start because she was better at organizing her thoughts than I was. She walked him through it from the beginning. The abandoned Camry, the tracks leading into nowhere, the cell phone we'd found, the way the tracks just ended, then the figures we'd seen, the bodies. Burke listened without interrupting, his expression neutral. When Myra finished, he turned to me. "That match your recollection, word for word. And you're both certain these people were deceased when you found them?" "They were frozen solid," I said. "Not just cold, actually frozen, like they'd been dead for hours. But they were standing up." "Yes, sir." "And one of them spoke to you?" "Yes, sir." Burke was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I've got units heading out there now to recover the bodies and secure the scene. Weather's still bad, but it's supposed to break around dawn. We'll do a thorough search of the area at first light." "What about the tracks?" Myra asked. "We'll document everything we can, but with this wind, I'd be surprised if there's much left to see by morning." He was probably right. Ground blizzards had a way of erasing everything, turning the landscape into a blank slate. By sunrise, all evidence of what we'd seen might be gone. Just our word against the empty snow. "I need you both to write detailed reports," Burke continued. "Everything you saw, everything you did, exact times as best you can remember. And I need to know about that cell phone you found." Myra pulled the evidence bag from her pocket and set it on Burke's desk. He picked it up, examining the phone through the plastic. "You get anything off it?" Lock screen shows a photo. Man and woman, Grand Tetons in the background. Couldn't unlock it without the code. "I'll have our tech guy take a look. Might be able to pull some data even if it's locked." He set the bag down and looked at both of us. "You two go home. Get warm, get some rest. I'll call you if we find anything." "Sheriff," I said, "there's something else." "What's that?" "Dispatch told us David Cortez was reported missing 3 weeks ago, but that car looked like it had only been there a few hours." Burke nodded slowly. "I saw that in the initial report. I've got someone pulling the missing person file now. We'll see what we can find out." Myra and I stood to leave. I was halfway to the door when Burke called after me. "Reddick, you did good work out there tonight, both of you. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out." I nodded, but didn't say anything. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure we would figure it out. Some things don't make sense no matter how hard you look at them. I drove home through empty streets. Lander was quiet at this hour, just a few streetlights casting yellow pools on the snow. I lived in a small house on the west side of town. Nothing fancy, just a place to sleep between shifts. I pulled into the driveway and sat there for a minute, engine running, staring at my front door. I didn't want to go inside. Didn't want to be alone with my thoughts. But I was exhausted, and my body was demanding rest even if my mind wasn't ready for it. I killed the engine and went in. The house was cold. I turned the heat down before my shift to save money. I cranked it back up and stood in front of the floor vent, letting warm air blow over me. My hands and feet were still tingling from the earlier exposure. My face felt tight where the skin had been frozen. I should have eaten something, but I wasn't hungry. Should have taken a shower, but I didn't have the energy. I just walked into my bedroom, set my gun and badge on the nightstand, and lay down on top of the covers with my uniform still on. I closed my eyes and tried not to think about those figures standing in the snow. Tried not to think about the gray skin and black fingers. Tried not to think about the way they'd collapsed like puppets with cut strings. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, my phone was ringing. I grabbed it off the nightstand and checked the time. 6:47 a.m. I'd been asleep for maybe 4 hours. "Harlan. Reddick, it's Burke. We've got a situation." I sat up, suddenly awake. What kind of situation? The units I sent out to recover those bodies, they're not there. Not there? How can they not be there? I mean, the bodies aren't there. The Camry's there, right where you said it would be, but no bodies, no tracks, nothing. I stood up and started looking for my boots. That's impossible. Myra and I both saw them. I know, and I believe you. But they're gone now. My deputies have been searching the area for the last hour, and they haven't found anything. What about the phone, the evidence we collected? That's the other thing I'm calling about. Our tech guy tried to access it this morning. The phone's completely dead. Won't power on. Battery's drained even though it showed 67% when you found it. I stopped moving. Stood there in the middle of my bedroom, holding my phone, trying to process what Burke was telling me. None of this makes sense. No, it doesn't. I need you to come back out there, you and Myra both. Show my deputies exactly where you found everything. On my way. I called Myra while I was driving. She'd gotten the same call from Burke. We agreed to meet at the sheriff's office and ride out together in daylight. Maybe things would make more sense when we could actually see where we were going. The storm had broken just like Burke predicted. The sky was clear, painfully blue, and the sun was just coming up over the Wind River Range to the east. The temperature had dropped even further overnight. My truck's thermometer read -28, but at least the wind had died down. That made all the difference. Myra was waiting in the parking lot when I arrived. She looked about as rough as I felt. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail. We didn't say much as we climbed into my patrol vehicle and headed north on 287. In daylight, the highway looked almost peaceful. Snow covered everything in a smooth white blanket that sparkled in the early morning sun. The mountains to the west stood out sharp and clear against the blue sky. It was beautiful in a stark, unforgiving way. The kind of beauty that will kill you if you're not careful. We reached the site around 8:15. There were 2 sheriff's department vehicles already there, parked on the shoulder with their lights off. The Camry was right where we'd left it, maybe 40 yards off the highway. But something was different. "The lights are off," Myra said. She was right. Last night the headlights and taillights had been on, running off the battery. Now they were dark. I pulled over and we got out, joining the 2 deputies who were standing near the edge of the highway. One of them was Deputy Lennox, a young guy maybe 2 years out of the academy. The other was Deputy Vasquez, older, more experienced. They both looked confused. "Show us what you found," I said. Lennox pointed toward the Camry. "Vehicle's there like you reported. We checked the interior. Keys are still in the ignition, but they're turned to the off position now. Battery's dead. We tried to start it and got nothing." "What about the tracks?" "That's the thing." Vasquez walked a few steps out into the snow, his boots crunching in the frozen crust. "There's nothing. No tracks, no footprints, no sign anyone was ever here except for the Camry itself." Myra and I walked over to where the driver's door was. This was where the tracks had started last night, where we'd seen the first set of footprints leading east into the darkness. I looked down at the snow. Nothing. Just smooth, undisturbed white. "The wind could have covered them," Myra said, but she didn't sound convinced. "Look at our tracks." I pointed back toward where we'd walked from the highway. "We made those 30 seconds ago and they're still clear. If our tracks are visible, the ones from last night should be too." Vasquez nodded. "That's what we thought. We've searched a 100-yard radius around the vehicle. No tracks, no bodies, no evidence anyone was here except for the car itself." I walked around the Camry slowly, examining the ground. The snow was pristine, perfect, like a fresh sheet pulled tight over a bed. Last night this area had been covered with footprints. Mine, Myra's, the mysterious tracks we'd followed. The confused, overlapping prints where the 2 sets had met. All gone. "What about the bodies?" I asked. "Where we found them?" Lennox pulled out a small notebook. "You said approximately 20 feet from the driver's side of the vehicle for the first one, and about 50 yards south for the second." "That's right." We checked both locations. Nothing. I walked to where the first body had been. The man with the gray skin and black fingers. I'd knelt right here, tried to find a pulse, started chest compressions. The snow should have been disturbed, should have shown signs of a body lying there. But it was smooth and untouched. Myra joined me. "This doesn't make sense." "I know. We didn't imagine this, we both saw the same thing." "I know." But doubt was creeping in anyway. That's what happens when reality doesn't match your memory. You start questioning yourself. Maybe I'd been more affected by the cold than I thought. Maybe we'd both been seeing things that weren't there. Except that didn't explain the cell phone. That had been real. We'd bagged it, brought it back. Vasquez had confirmed it this morning. "Tell me about the phone," I said to Vasquez. He pulled out his own phone and showed me a photo. It was the same device we'd found, still in the evidence bag. Tech guy said the battery showed 0% when he tried to power it on this morning, like it had been completely drained overnight. That's not possible. Modern phones don't lose 67% battery just sitting in a bag for a few hours. I know. He said the same thing. He's going to send it to the state lab, see if they can recover any data. I looked back at the Camry. Something was nagging at me. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on. The vehicle looked different somehow. Not in any obvious way, but different. Then it hit me. "The snow on the hood," I said. Everyone looked. There was a thin layer of snow covering the Camry's hood and roof, smooth and even. "What about it?" Lennox asked. "Last night, when we found it, the engine had been running recently enough that the hood was probably still warm. Snow would have melted on contact, at least partially, but this looks like it's been accumulating for hours." Myra walked over and touched the hood. "It's ice cold. Feels like it's been sitting here for days." Vasquez pulled out his radio. "Sheriff, this is Vasquez. The vehicle shows signs of extended exposure. Recommend we get a tow truck out here and impound it for examination." Burke's voice came back clear. "Copy that. I'll arrange for transport. In the meantime, I need you to expand your search radius. If those bodies are out there, we need to find them." We spent the next 3 hours searching. 4 of us spread out in a grid pattern, walking back and forth across the frozen landscape. We went half a mile in every direction from the Camry. Found nothing. No tracks, no bodies. No evidence anyone had been there except for the abandoned vehicle itself. Around noon, Burke called it. We were all cold, frustrated, and no closer to understanding what had happened. The tow truck arrived and hooked up the Camry. We watched them haul it away, back toward Lander, where it would sit in an impound lot while Tex went over every inch of it. Myra and I drove back in silence. Neither of us wanted to say what we were both thinking, that maybe we'd imagined the whole thing, that the cold and the darkness and the isolation had played tricks on our minds. But I knew what I'd seen, knew it as surely as I knew my own name. Those people had been real. Back at the sheriff's office, Burke had us sit down with a recorder and give formal statements. Every detail, every observation, everything we could remember. It took almost 2 hours. When we were done, Burke turned off the recorder and leaned back in his chair. "I've been doing this job for a long time," he said. "Seen a lot of strange things, but this," he shook his head, "this is something else." "What about the missing person report on Cortez?" I asked. Burke opened a file on his desk. "David Cortez, 37 years old, reported missing by his brother on February 3rd. That's 22 days ago. He was last seen leaving his apartment in Riverton. Said he was going for a drive to clear his head. Never came back. And the Camry? Registered to David Cortez. But here's the interesting part. When he was reported missing, his brother told us David had taken his car. A white Toyota Camry, same year and model as the one you found. So either that's his car and it's been sitting out there for 3 weeks, or what? Myra asked. Burke closed the file. Or something else is going on that I don't understand. My radio crackled. It was dispatch, but the signal was breaking up again. Static washed over the words, making them hard to hear. Unit, static, report, static, Highway 287. I keyed my mic. Dispatch, this is Unit 14, repeat. More static. Then, just barely audible. Additional vehicle. Static, mile marker 36. Static. Dispatch, you're breaking up. Did you say additional vehicle? The response was pure static for several seconds. Then, clear as day, affirmative. Single vehicle off the road, repeat. Single vehicle off the road, approximately mile marker 36. That was less than 2 miles from where we'd found the Camry. Burke was already standing. Take Vasquez with you. I'll send Lennox as backup. Myra and I headed for the door. I didn't want to go back out there. Didn't want to see what was waiting at mile marker 36. But that's the job. You go where you're needed, even when every instinct is telling you to run the other way. We made good time on the highway. The roads were clear and the visibility was perfect. Cold and bright and nothing like the nightmare conditions from last night. But as we got closer to mile marker 36, I felt that familiar sense of dread settling in my stomach. There, Vasquez pointed. About 30 yards off the east side of the highway, there was another vehicle. This one was a dark blue Ford pickup, maybe 10 years old. It was sitting at an angle, nose down in a shallow depression, just like the Camry had been. We pulled over and approached carefully. The truck's engine was off, but the headlights were on. Weak and dim, but on, battery probably close to dead. I walked up to the driver's side and looked in the window. Empty. "Check for tracks," I told Vasquez. He walked around to the driver's door and looked down. Then he looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. "You need to see this." I joined him. There in the snow, clear as day, were footprints. Leading away from the truck, heading east, one set. Regular spacing, deliberate stride, exactly like last night. "No," Myra said. "No, we're not doing this again." But we were, because that's what the job required. I pulled my radio and called it in. Then I started following the tracks. They led in a perfectly straight line across the flat ground. I counted my steps. At 200 yards, the tracks were still going. At 300 yards, still going. At 400 yards, I saw them, 2 figures. Standing perfectly still in the distance. One larger, one smaller. Just standing there waiting. I stopped walking. Vasquez and Myra caught up to me. "Is that—" Vasquez started. "Yeah," I said. We stood there, the 3 of us, staring at the impossible. 2 figures that shouldn't exist. Standing in snow that should have killed them hours ago, waiting for us like they knew we'd come. My radio crackled. This time it wasn't dispatch. It was just static. But underneath the static I heard it again. That voice, faint and distant and wrong. Myra. Deputy Kincaid grabbed my arm. "You heard that?" "Yeah." "It said my name." "I know." Vasquez was backing away. "This isn't right. We need to leave. Now." He was right. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to turn around and get back in the patrol vehicle and drive away as fast as possible. But I couldn't, because those figures were waiting, and somehow I knew they'd keep waiting until we came to them, or until they came to us. I took a step forward, then another. Myra and Vasquez followed, though I could tell neither of them wanted to. We walked toward the figures, our boots crunching in the frozen snow, our breath fogging in the cold air. As we got closer, I could make out more details. The larger figure was a man, average height, wearing jeans and a light jacket. The smaller figure was a woman, dark hair, same inadequate clothing, both standing perfectly still, both staring at nothing. At 50 yards, I called out, "Wyoming Highway Patrol, stay where you are." No response. No movement. At 30 yards, I could see their faces. Gray skin, empty eyes, the same appearance as the bodies from last night. At 20 yards, they turned their heads in unison and looked directly at us. That's when I knew. We weren't going to find answers out here. We were just going to find more questions, more impossible things, more bodies that moved when they should be still. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a terrible thought was forming. What if those figures weren't different people? What if it was the same 2, over and over, standing and falling and appearing again, waiting for someone to find them, waiting for us? The male figure's lips moved. That same, barely audible word, carried on the frozen air. Cold. Behind me, Vasquez turned and ran. I heard his boots pounding on the snow, heard him gasping for breath as he fled back toward the vehicles. I didn't blame him. Part of me wanted to run too, but I stood my ground, because that's what you do. You stand your ground and you face what's in front of you, no matter how much it scares you. The woman collapsed first, straight down, just like last night, then the man. both of them folding into the snow like puppets with cut strings. Myra and I approached the bodies, already knowing what we'd find. Gray skin, black fingers, frozen solid. Dead, but somehow they'd been standing. Somehow they'd been aware. I knelt beside the male body. His eyes were still open, still staring, and in their empty depths I thought I saw something. Recognition, maybe, or warning. That's when my radio crackled one more time. Clear signal now. No static. And the voice that came through wasn't dispatch. It was my own voice. Unit 14, tracks terminated. No sign of individuals. I was listening to myself from last night. The exact words I'd spoken, the exact intonation, playing back through my radio like a recording. Myra heard it too. She looked at me with wide eyes. That's not possible. But it was happening. My radio kept playing back pieces of last night's communications, fragments of conversation, bits of procedure, all in my voice, all saying things I'd said hours ago. Then it changed. The voice was still mine, but the words were different. Words I'd never spoken. They're still here. They've always been here, waiting in the cold. I dropped the radio. It hit the snow and went silent. But I could still hear the voice in my head, still hear it saying things I didn't want to hear, things I didn't want to believe. We're leaving, Myra said, right now. She was right. We needed to go, needed to get away from this place and these bodies and whatever was speaking through my radio. We turned and started walking back toward the vehicles. Behind us, in the snow, 2 bodies lay frozen and still. But I swear I heard them moving. Sheriff Burke pulled us off the case 3 days later. It wasn't personal, at least that's what he said, but I could see it in his eyes when he called us into his office. Concern. Maybe a little fear. The kind of look you give someone who's been out in the cold too long. Someone who's starting to show signs of frostbite in their thinking. I've got the state boys taking over, he said. They're sending a team up from Cheyenne. Should be here by tomorrow. We can handle it, I said. I know you can. But you've been out there 4 times in 3 days. You need rest, both of you. Myra didn't argue. She'd been quiet since that second scene, since we'd heard my voice coming through the radio saying things I'd never said. She'd requested time off the next morning, and Burke had granted it. I hadn't seen her since. What about the bodies? I asked. Burke opened a file on his desk. Both recovered and transported to the state medical examiner in Cheyenne. Preliminary findings are consistent with death by exposure. Estimated time of death for both victims is approximately 3 to 4 weeks ago. That's impossible. We saw them standing. They spoke to us. I know what you reported, but the ME is very clear. Based on tissue decomposition, cellular breakdown, and other factors I don't fully understand, these people have been dead for weeks, not hours. Then how? I don't know, Reddick. And that's why the state's taking over. This is beyond what we can handle at the county level. I wanted to argue, wanted to demand that I stay on the case, but Burke was right. I was exhausted, hadn't slept properly in 3 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those figures standing in the snow, heard that voice on the radio, my own voice, saying impossible things. What about the vehicles? I asked. The Camry and the truck? Both processed. The Camry is registered to David Cortez, confirmed. The truck belongs to a woman named Sarah Dalhousie from Casper. She was reported missing February 8th. That's 19 days ago. February 8th. I did the math in my head. David Cortez disappeared February 3rd. Sarah Dalhousie February 8th, 5 days apart, both on Highway 287. Both found in their vehicles off the road, with tracks leading east into nothing. Has anyone checked for other missing persons? I asked. Other disappearances along 287? Burke nodded slowly. The state team is looking into it. But Reddick, I need you to let them handle it. Go home, rest. Give yourself some distance from this. I stood to leave. At the door, I turned back. Sheriff, what do you think is happening out there? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I think there are things in Wyoming that we don't understand. Things that have been here longer than we have. And I think Highway 287 runs through territory that maybe we shouldn't have built a road through in the first place. It wasn't the answer I was expecting. Burke was practical, logical. Not the kind of man who talked about unexplainable things, but I could see in his face that whatever was happening had gotten to him, too. I drove home in daylight. That's something I'd started doing, making sure I was never out on 287 after dark. The highway looked normal during the day, almost friendly. The sun was shining, the sky was blue. The mountains stood clear and beautiful to the west. Nothing threatening about any of it. But I knew what was out there when the sun went down. At home, I tried to sleep. Lay down in my bed with the curtains drawn and my phone on silent. But every time I started to drift off, I'd hear it. That voice on the radio, my voice, saying things I'd never said. They're still here, they've always been here, waiting in the cold. Around 6 p.m., I gave up trying to sleep and made coffee instead. Sat at my kitchen table and tried to think through what I knew, what I'd seen. Tried to find some pattern, some logic that would make it all make sense. 2 people disappeared weeks apart. Both on Highway 287. Both found in their vehicles off the road. Both with tracks leading east. Both appearing as standing figures in the snow, only to collapse when approached. Both frozen solid despite having been moving moments before. And the tracks, always leading east. Always in a straight line. Always ending in the same way, just stopping in the middle of nowhere like the people making them had simply ceased to exist. What was east of Highway 287? I pulled up a map on my phone. Empty land mostly. High desert plains that stretched for miles. The Sweetwater River cut through it about 3 miles out. Beyond that, more nothing. Then the Ferris Mountains, low and ancient, worn down by wind and time. The Ferris Mountains. Something about that name triggered a memory. Something I'd heard or read somewhere. I opened my laptop and started searching. Ferris Mountains, Wyoming. History, legends. It took me 20 minutes to find it. A scanned document from the Wyoming State Archives, dated 1889. A report from a cavalry unit stationed at Fort Washakie. They'd been sent to investigate reports of missing travelers along what was then called the Sweetwater Trail, a route that roughly followed what would eventually become Highway 287. The report described finding abandoned wagons, provisions left behind, tracks leading away from the trail toward the Ferris Mountains. The cavalry followed the tracks, but they always ended the same way. No sign of the missing travelers. No bodies. No evidence of attack or struggle. Just tracks that led to nowhere. The report's author, a Captain Merritt Stroud, concluded that the disappearances were likely the result of confusion and exposure. Travelers getting disoriented in bad weather and wandering off to die in the wilderness. A rational explanation for an irrational situation. But there was a handwritten note in the margin of the report added by someone else. It was barely legible in the scan, but I could make out the words. Captain Stroud disappeared March 14, 1889. Last seen heading east from Fort Washakie. Never found. I sat back from my laptop. 1889. That was over 130 years ago, and it was still happening. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick it up. Harlan. Static. just pure static for several seconds. Then a voice, faint and distant. "Reddick." It was Myra. "Myra, where are you?" More static. Then her voice again, clearer this time. "I'm on 287, mile marker 36. What are you doing out there?" I had to come back, had to see. "Reddick, the tracks are here again. Get out of there, right now." I can see them, the figures. They're standing about 400 yards out. "Myra, listen to me. Get back in your vehicle and leave. Do not approach them. They're just standing there, waiting." "Myra!" The line went dead. I tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times with the same result. Then I grabbed my keys and my gun and headed for the door. I broke every speed limit between Lander and mile marker 36, made the drive in under 20 minutes. The sun was setting as I arrived, the western sky turning orange and red. Long shadows stretched across the snow. Myra's personal vehicle was there, parked on the shoulder. A silver Jeep Cherokee that I'd seen in the sheriff's office parking lot 100 times. The driver's door was open, engine running, no Myra. I pulled up behind her and got out. "Myra! Deputy Kincaid!" Nothing but wind. It had picked up in the last hour, blowing snow across the highway in sheets. Not as bad as 3 nights ago, but bad enough. Temperature was dropping fast as the sun went down. I found her tracks immediately, leading away from her vehicle, heading east. One set of footprints, regular spacing, deliberate stride. I pulled my radio and called it in. "Dispatch, this is Unit 14. I have an officer who may be in distress. Highway 287, mile marker 36, requesting immediate backup." The response was static. I tried again. Same result. I pulled my cell phone. No signal. I should have waited for backup. Should have gone back to Lander and gotten help. That would have been the smart thing to do. The safe thing to do. But Myra was out there, and I wasn't going to leave her. I started following the tracks. The sun was almost down now, just a sliver of orange on the horizon. I pulled my flashlight and kept moving. The wind cut through my coat. The cold bit at my exposed skin, but I kept walking. At 200 yards, I called out again. "Myra!" No response. Just wind and the crunch of my boots on frozen snow. At 300 yards, I saw them. 2 figures in the distance, standing perfectly still. One taller, one shorter, same as before. But as I got closer, I realized something was wrong. The taller figure was Myra. I started running. "Myra! Myra, can you hear me?" She didn't respond, didn't move, just stood there perfectly still, staring at nothing. The shorter figure beside her was the woman from before, Sarah Dalhousie. Same gray skin, same empty eyes, both of them standing together like they were waiting for something. I reached Myra and grabbed her shoulders. "Myra, talk to me." She turned her head slowly. Her skin was pale but not gray yet. Her eyes were distant but still focused. She looked at me like she was seeing me from very far away. "It's so cold, Reddick. I know. We need to get you out of here. They've been waiting. All this time. Waiting for someone to understand." "Understand what? Why they stay? Why they can't leave?" She turned her head back toward the east. "It's out there, in the mountains. Something that pulls. Something that holds. Myra, you're not making sense. We need to go. Now. I can feel it pulling. Can you feel it?" I realized I could. A sensation like pressure. Like something tugging at the center of my chest. Drawing me forward. Drawing me east toward the Ferris Mountains that stood dark against the dying light. "Fight it," I said. "Don't listen to it. Focus on my voice." The figure beside us, Sarah Dalhousie, collapsed, straight down into the snow without a sound. Myra watched her fall with no expression on her face. "That's what happens," she said. "When you can't fight anymore, when the cold takes you, you fall, and then you stand again and again, waiting for someone to help you. But no one can. I can help you, come on." I tried to pull her back toward the highway, but she wouldn't move. Her boots were planted in the snow like they were frozen there. I pulled harder, and she turned to look at me with those distant eyes. "I came out here to understand, and now I do. They're not dead, Reddick, not really. They're trapped, between what they were and what they're becoming, and now I'm trapped too. No. No, you're not. You're coming with me." I grabbed her around the waist and physically lifted her, turning back toward the highway. She didn't struggle, but she didn't help either. Just hung limp in my arms like a doll. I started walking, carrying her, my boots slipping on the icy snow. Behind us, I heard something. Movement in the snow. I looked back and saw Sarah Dalhousie standing again. And beside her, another figure. David Cortez. Both of them upright now. Both watching us leave. I kept walking. Myra was getting heavier in my arms, or I was getting weaker. The cold was sapping my strength. The wind was pushing against us. That pulling sensation was getting stronger, like invisible hands trying to drag us back. At 200 yards from the highway, Myra spoke again. "You should leave me." "Not a chance." "I can feel it, Reddick, the cold. It's inside me now, in my bones, in my blood. I'm becoming like them. Stop talking, save your strength." At 100 yards, I had to stop and rest. Set Myra down in the snow and bent over, hands on my knees, gasping for breath. The cold was overwhelming. My muscles were cramping. My thoughts were getting fuzzy. That's when I heard the footsteps. I turned. They were following us. Sarah and David walking together in perfect synchronization. Not hurrying, not threatening, just following. Their footsteps made no sound on the frozen snow. Their breath made no fog in the cold air. They weren't breathing. I picked Myra back up and kept moving. 50 yards. My legs were shaking. My vision was starting to blur. The lights of our vehicle seemed impossibly far away. 25 yards. Myra's eyes were closed. Her skin was pale. Her breathing was shallow. I had to get her warm, had to get her to a hospital. 10 yards. I could see my patrol vehicle. So close. Almost there. That's when I fell. My legs just gave out. I went down hard, Myra tumbling from my arms. We landed in the snow, and I couldn't get up. My body wouldn't respond. The cold had finally won. I turned my head. Sarah and David were standing over us now, looking down with those empty eyes. Waiting. This is it, I thought. This is how it ends. 2 more state troopers disappearing on Highway 287. 2 more sets of tracks leading to nowhere. 2 more figures standing in the snow, waiting for the next person to come looking. Then I heard an engine. Headlights cut through the darkness. A vehicle was pulling over. Multiple vehicles, voices calling out. "Over here! I've got them!" Hands grabbed me, pulled me up. Someone was wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. Someone else was loading Myra onto a stretcher. I tried to tell them about Sarah and David, tried to warn them, but my voice wouldn't work. I looked back toward where they'd been standing. Empty snow. No figures. No tracks. Nothing. They loaded me into an ambulance. I remember the warmth. Remember the EMT asking me questions I couldn't answer. Remember the sensation of movement as we drove away from that place. Then, nothing. I woke up in the hospital in Lander. 2 days later, they told me. I'd been unconscious for 2 days. Severe hypothermia. Frostbite on 3 fingers of my right hand. but I'd live. Myra was in the ICU. Critical condition. The doctors weren't sure if she'd make it. Her core temperature had dropped to 81 degrees. That's cold enough that most people don't recover. But she was young and strong. They were hopeful. Sheriff Burke came to see me on the third day. He sat in the chair beside my bed and didn't say anything for a long time. Just sat there, his weathered face showing every one of his 60-plus years. Finally, he said, "The state team found something." "What?" "Records. Going back over 100 years. 23 documented disappearances along Highway 287 and the old Sweetwater Trail before it. All of them with the same pattern. Vehicles or wagons abandoned. Tracks leading east. No bodies found. 23. That they've documented. Could be more. Probably are more." He shifted in his chair. "They're closing that stretch of highway, mile marker 34 through 38, permanently. Going to route traffic around it. Say it's due to unstable conditions, erosion, danger of avalanche. But we both know the real reason. What about Sarah Dalhousie and David Cortez? What about the others? The ME released their bodies to their families. Cause of death listed as exposure. Cases closed." He looked at me. "Officially, you and Myra got disoriented in bad weather and nearly died of hypothermia. That's what's going in the report. That's not what happened. I know. But it's the story that makes sense. The story people can accept." He stood to leave. "You did good work, Reddick. You saved Myra's life, that's what matters." After he left, I lay there thinking about his words. The story that makes sense. The story people can accept. But what about the real story? What about the truth? 3 weeks later, I was cleared to return to duty. Myra recovered too, though it took longer. She spent a month in the hospital. When she finally came back to work, she requested a transfer. Got assigned to a desk job in Cheyenne. I don't blame her. I still work Highway 287. Still patrol the stretch between Lander and Muddy Gap. But I don't go near mile marker 36 anymore. Nobody does. They put up barriers and detour signs. Rerouted traffic like Burke said they would. That section of highway sits empty now, slowly being reclaimed by snow and wind. Sometimes, late at night when I'm driving, I'll look off to the east, toward the Ferris Mountains. And sometimes I think I can see them. Figures standing in the snow, waiting. I know what the official reports say, know what the logical explanation is supposed to be, but I also know what I saw, what I felt. That pulling sensation, that cold that gets into your bones and doesn't leave. There's something out there, something old, something that draws people away from the road and holds them, keeps them standing in the snow, waiting for someone to help them, or waiting for someone to join them, I don't know which. Last week, I got a call at home. Unknown number, I almost didn't answer, but I did. Static on the line, then a voice, faint and distant. Reddick, it was Myra's voice, but Myra was in Cheyenne, working a desk job, safe. Who is this? More static, then, it's so cold, Reddick, so cold. I hung up, tried to call Myra's real number. She answered on the third ring. Hey, Reddick, what's up? Did you just call me? No, why? No reason, just checking in. How are you doing? Good, better, seeing a therapist twice a week. She's helping. That's good, that's really good. We talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. When I hung up, I sat there looking at my phone. Myra was fine. She was safe in Cheyenne, working a desk job, recovering. So, whose voice had I heard on that call? I don't have an answer. Don't know if I ever will. Some things don't have explanations that make sense. Don't have solutions that tie everything up neatly. All I know is this. Highway 287 runs through country that's older than we are, through land that was here before the road, before the towns, before any of us. And something lives there, something that waits in the cold. Sometimes at night, when the wind is blowing and the snow is falling, I still hear it, that voice on the radio, my voice, saying things I never said. They're still here, they've always been here, waiting in the cold. And sometimes I wonder, if I went back out there, if I followed those tracks one more time, would I find what I'm looking for? Would I finally understand? Or would I just become another figure standing in the snow, another set of tracks leading nowhere, another voice calling out from the static, trying to warn whoever comes next? I don't know, and I'm not sure I want to find out. Some questions are better left unanswered. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Because out there in the dark, on the empty stretches of Highway 287, something is still waiting, still pulling, still calling people away from the safety of the road and into the cold. And it's patient. It's been waiting for over 100 years. It can wait 100 more. The stretch of highway is closed now. The detour signs are up. The barriers are in place. But late at night, when I'm driving past, I sometimes see tire tracks in the snow, fresh tracks, leading off the road toward the closed section, toward mile marker 36. Someone's still going there, despite the barriers, despite the warnings, despite everything that's happened. Maybe they're looking for answers too. Maybe they're looking for someone who disappeared. Or maybe they're just following that pull, that calling, that voice in the static that says, "Come east. Come see what's waiting." I hope they turn back. Hope they see the danger before it's too late. But I know they probably won't, because the pull is strong, stronger than fear, stronger than reason. And out there in the Ferris Mountains, in the high desert plains of Wyoming, something ancient and cold is still waiting for them, still waiting for all of us. I finish my shift and drive home. The sun is setting. The temperature is dropping. The wind is picking up. It's going to be a cold night. The kind of night where you want to stay inside, want to stay warm, want to stay safe. But somewhere out there, someone's vehicle is sliding off the road. Someone's getting out to look around. Someone's finding tracks in the snow, leading east. And they're following them because that's what people do. We see something we don't understand, and we have to investigate, have to know, have to find the answer. Even when the answer is something we're not ready to face. Even when the answer is waiting in the cold. I make it home, lock my doors, turn up the heat, pour myself a drink and sit by the window looking out at the night. Somewhere in the distance, I can see the mountains. Dark shapes against a darker sky. And I swear, just for a moment, I see lights out there. Small lights, like flashlights, moving east across the snow in perfectly straight lines. Someone else is following the tracks tonight. I close the curtains and turn away. There's nothing I can do. Nothing anyone can do. It's out of our hands now. Out of anyone's hands. The cold will do what it does. The mountains will keep their secrets. And Highway 287 will claim another victim. Or maybe not. Maybe whoever's out there will turn back. Maybe they'll make it to safety. Maybe they'll survive. But probably not. Because the cold is patient and the pull is strong. And whatever's waiting in the Ferris Mountains has been doing this for a very long time. It knows how to wait, it knows how to call, and sooner or later, someone always answers. So I need to tell you about the night shift call that changed how I think about the empty places in Wyoming. Changed how I think about a lot of things, actually. This happened about 2 years into my time with Highway Patrol, back when I still thought I'd seen most of what this job could throw at me. Turns out I hadn't seen anything yet. I was working the graveyard shift on Interstate 80, the stretch between Rawlins and Laramie. It's one of the lonelier runs in the state, and that's saying something because Wyoming specializes in lonely. You've got about 100 miles of high prairie, wind that never stops, and scattered rest areas that see maybe a dozen vehicles on a good night. On a bad night, you're the only human being for 50 miles in any direction. The call came in around 2:37 a.m. I remember the exact time because I'd just stopped at the Sinclair truck stop for coffee and was logging it in my daily activity report. My radio crackled and Tessa Ruiar's voice came through from dispatch. Unit 23, this is dispatch. We've got a suspicious activity report at the Continental Divide rest area, westbound side. Caller reported seeing unusual lights in the parking area approximately 30 minutes ago. I keyed my mic. Copy that, dispatch. Nature of the unusual lights? Caller described them as standby. There was a pause, the sound of papers shuffling. Described as flickering, moving in patterns, not consistent with vehicle headlights. Caller was a truck driver who stopped briefly but left due to, quote, bad feeling about the place. Copy. I'm about 15 minutes out. Any other units in the area? Negative, Unit 23. You're solo tonight. Highway patrol is running light due to the budget cuts. Understood. En route. I pulled out of the truck stop and headed west on I-80. The highway was empty. Not a single pair of taillights ahead of me. No headlights coming the other way. Just my patrol vehicle and about 1 million stars overhead. The wind was pushing tumbleweeds across the road, their shadows dancing in my headlights like living things. The Continental Divide rest area isn't much to look at. Basic facilities, a couple of parking loops, some informational signs about the watershed divide. It sits at about 7,000 feet elevation, surrounded by nothing but sagebrush and sky. During the day, it's just another place to stretch your legs and use the bathroom. At night, it's different. Everything's different at night out here. I could see the rest area from about 2 miles away, lit up by those tall sodium lights that turn everything orange and strange. As I got closer, I counted vehicles. 3 in the truck parking section. 1 RV in the passenger vehicle area. Normal for this time of night. I pulled into the entrance slowly, scanning for anything unusual. The lights Tessa had mentioned, the flickering ones. I didn't see anything like that. Just the normal parking lot illumination and the dark shapes of parked vehicles. I radioed in. Dispatch, Unit 23 on scene. Visual inspection shows 4 vehicles present. No obvious signs of disturbance. Copy, Unit 23. Caller specifically mentioned the north end of the parking area near the facilities building. I drove toward the facilities. A squat, concrete structure with restrooms and vending machines. The building sat at the north end of the rest area, backed up against open prairie. There was a camera mounted above the entrance. One of those security cameras that's supposed to help prevent vandalism. The little red light was blinking, indicating it was recording. I parked and stepped out of my vehicle. The wind hit me immediately, strong and cold, even though it was April. Temperature was probably in the low 30s. I zipped my jacket up and grabbed my flashlight. The parking lot was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. No engine sounds from the trucks. No lights on in the RV. No sound at all except the wind and the buzzing of those sodium lights overhead. I walked toward the facilities building, playing my flashlight over the ground. Nothing unusual. No tire marks, no debris, no signs of any kind of disturbance. I tried the door to the men's room. Unlocked, which was normal. They kept these rest areas open 24 hours. Inside, the bathroom smelled like industrial cleaner and something else. Something faint and unpleasant that I couldn't quite identify. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly, making that electrical hum they do when they're getting old. 3 stalls, 2 urinals, a sink with an automatic faucet. All empty, all normal. I checked the women's room next. Same layout, same smell, same flickering lights. Nothing out of place. Back outside, I walked around the perimeter of the building. My flashlight beam swept across the concrete walls, the small windows set high up, the utility boxes and electrical panels. Everything looked undisturbed. I keyed my radio. Dispatch, Unit 23. Building is secure. No signs of suspicious activity. Going to make contact with the vehicles present. Copy, Unit 23. I started with the RV. It was an older model Winnebago, maybe 20 years old, with Colorado plates. I knocked on the side door. Wyoming Highway Patrol. Anyone home? A light came on inside. After a moment, the door opened, and a man in his 60s peered out, squinting against my flashlight. I lowered the beam. Sorry to disturb you, sir. We had a report of suspicious activity in the area. Have you noticed anything unusual tonight? He shook his head. Been asleep since about 11. Just passing through on my way to Salt Lake City. Everything okay? Yes, sir. Just following up on a call. You have a good night. I moved on to the trucks. The first 2 were sleepers with their curtains drawn and no lights visible. I knocked on each one but got no response. Either the drivers were asleep or they were ignoring me. Either way, nothing seemed amiss. The 3rd truck was different. It was parked at an odd angle, nose pointing slightly away from the designated parking space. The running lights were off, but I could see a faint glow coming from inside the cab. I approached the driver's side and knocked on the door. No response. I knocked again, louder. Highway Patrol. Need to speak with you for a moment. Still nothing. I tried the door handle. Locked. I pulled my flashlight and shined it through the window into the cab. Empty. Driver's seat empty. Passenger seat empty. But there was definitely a light source inside, coming from somewhere behind the seats in the sleeper compartment. A pale blue glow, like from a phone screen or a laptop. I knocked one more time. Sir, I can see a light inside. I need you to respond, or I'm going to have to treat this as a potential emergency situation. The blue glow flickered and went out. Then the cab was dark. Completely dark. And I still couldn't see anyone inside. I backed away from the truck and radioed it in. Dispatch, Unit 23. I've got a semi-truck with lights visible inside but no response from the occupant. Running the plates now. I walked around to get the plate number. Wyoming commercial registration. I called it in and waited while dispatch ran it through the system. Tessa's voice came back after about 30 seconds. Unit 23, registration comes back to Mountain West Transport, based in Casper. Registered driver is listed as Marcus Godfrey, age 43, no wants or warrants. Copy, the cab appears empty, but I saw lights inside. Going to check the cargo area. I walked around to the back of the trailer. It was a standard 53-footer refrigerated unit. I could hear the cooling unit running, a steady hum. The doors were secured with a standard seal, unbroken. Whatever was in there was still locked up tight. I came back around to the driver's side and was about to try the door again when I noticed something. The wind had died down, completely. One moment, it had been gusting hard enough to make me lean into it. The next, it was utterly still. And in that stillness, I could hear something. A sound coming from inside the rest area facilities. A low humming. Not the fluorescent lights, something else. Something that pulsed in a rhythm that was almost but not quite regular. I walked back toward the building. The sound grew louder as I approached. It was coming from inside, definitely, but I couldn't tell which room. Men's? Women's? Both? I pushed open the door to the men's room and the sound stopped. Just cut off mid-pulse. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the sound had been. "Highway Patrol," I called out. "Anyone in here?" My voice echoed off the tile walls. No response. I checked each stall, pushing the doors open with my flashlight. Empty, all of them empty, but the smell was stronger now. That unpleasant odor I'd noticed before. It smelled like I couldn't place it. Something organic. Something wrong. I backed out of the bathroom and checked the women's room. Same result. No one inside. No source for the humming. Just that smell. Stronger in here somehow. Back outside, I stood in the parking lot and turned in a slow circle. The RV was dark again. The 3 trucks sat silent. The sodium lights buzzed overhead. The wind was still completely calm, which was unusual. Wind in Wyoming never stops, especially not up here at 7,000 feet. Something was off about this place. I couldn't point to any one specific thing, couldn't articulate what exactly was wrong, but every instinct I had was telling me this situation wasn't normal. I pulled my radio. "Dispatch, Unit 23. I'm not finding anything specific, but something feels wrong here. Requesting you pull any available footage from the security camera at this location." "Copy, Unit 23. Camera system is managed by the Department of Transportation. I'll put in a request, but it may take some time." "Understood. In the meantime, I'm going to..." The radio cut out. Just pure static. I tried again. "Dispatch, Unit 23. Do you copy?" More static. Then it cleared and Tessa's voice came through, but it sounded different. Distant. Like she was speaking from very far away. "Unit 23. Copy. Video footage. Request. Dispatch. You're breaking up. Repeat. Footage available. Sending to your mobile data terminal." I walked back to my patrol vehicle and checked the MDT. The screen was booting up, slower than usual. The Department of Transportation had recently installed video links to most security cameras along the interstate, allowing us to check footage remotely if needed. It was supposed to speed up investigations. Usually, it worked fine. The MDT finished loading, and I accessed the camera feed for the Continental Divide rest area. There were 4 cameras total. 1 covering the truck parking, 1 covering the passenger vehicle area, 1 at the entrance, and 1 mounted above the facility's building entrance. I pulled up the footage from the facility's camera, the one I'd seen with its red light blinking. Set it to start from 30 minutes ago, right around when the truck driver had called in his report. The video was grainy, typical low-light security camera quality. I could see the parking lot, see the vehicles. I watched at double speed, looking for anything unusual. The timestamp in the corner ticked forward. 2:07 a.m., 2:12 a.m., 2:15 a.m. At 2:17 a.m., something appeared in frame. I paused the video and backed it up, played it again at normal speed. At exactly 2:17:33, the image flickered. Not like a glitch, but like something had passed between the camera and the lights, casting a brief shadow. But there was nothing there, no person, no vehicle, nothing visible that could have caused it. The shadow appeared again at 2:18:04, then 2:18:41, then 2:19:15, each time lasting only a fraction of a second, each time in a slightly different location in the frame. I switched to the truck parking camera, same thing. Shadows flickering across the image at irregular intervals, but never any source for the shadows. Nothing moving in frame that would cast them. The passenger vehicle camera showed something different. At 2:21:08, the RV's door opened. The elderly man I'd just talked to stepped out. He stood there for approximately 11 seconds, looking toward the facilities building. Then he turned and looked directly at the camera. His mouth moved like he was speaking, though there was no audio on the security feed. Then he stepped back into the RV and closed the door. That was odd, but not necessarily suspicious. Maybe he'd heard something. Maybe he'd been checking to see if everything was okay before going back to sleep. But then at 2:23:44, the door opened again, and the same man stepped out, stood in the same position, for the same 11 seconds, looked at the camera with his mouth moving in exactly the same way, stepped back inside. At 2:26:19, it happened again. Exact same sequence, same movements, same timing, like watching a recording loop. I watched the timestamp, 2:28:54. The door was opening again. The man was stepping out. The same 11 seconds, the same look toward the camera. This wasn't possible. I just talked to that man 5 minutes ago. He'd said he'd been asleep since 11 p.m., but the camera was showing him getting out of his RV over and over in a perfect loop. I switched back to the live feed from the facility's camera. The parking lot was empty. The vehicles were where they'd been, nothing moving. But as I watched, the image flickered, that same shadow passing across frame. Except now I could see what was causing it. There was someone standing near the facility's building, a figure dark against the orange sodium light. I hadn't seen them when I was just there, hadn't heard them, but on the camera feed they were clearly visible, standing perfectly still, facing the camera, about where I'd been standing 2 minutes ago. I looked up from the MDT screen toward the facilities building. From where I sat in my patrol vehicle, I had a clear view. The parking lot was empty. No one standing there. No one near the building. I looked back at the MDT. On the feed, the figure was still there, still standing, still watching. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the vehicle. Kept my eyes on the facilities building as I approached. The parking lot was silent. Still no wind. Just that electric hum from the overhead lights. I reached the spot where the figure had been standing on the camera feed. Nothing here. No footprints in the dust. No sign anyone had been standing here at all. I looked up at the camera mounted above the entrance. The red light was still blinking, still recording. I pulled my radio. Dispatch, Unit 23. I'm seeing anomalies on the security footage. Are you able to view the same feed from your location? Static. Then Tessa's voice, still sounding distant. Unit 23. Checking. Footage appears. Normal. Dispatch, define normal. I'm seeing images that don't match what I'm observing on scene. Interference. Solar activity. Common at higher elevations. That wasn't right. Solar interference didn't cause security cameras to show people who weren't there. Didn't cause RV occupants to exit their vehicles in perfect loops. Dispatch, I need you to... The radio cut out completely. Not static this time, just dead air. I tried my cell phone. No signal. That wasn't unusual up here. Cell coverage in rural Wyoming was spotty at best. But my radio had been working fine until a few minutes ago. I walked back to my patrol vehicle, intending to try the radio again from there. That's when I noticed the truck. The semi with the odd parking job. The one with the mysterious blue light in the cab. The driver's door was open now. Standing wide open, interior light on. I could see into the cab clearly, still empty. But I knew that door had been closed and locked when I'd checked it 10 minutes ago. I approached slowly, one hand on my sidearm. Highway Patrol. Marcus Godfrey, if you're in there, I need you to show yourself. No response. I reached the open door and looked inside. The cab was definitely empty. Keys still in the ignition. A coffee cup in the holder, still full. A clipboard on the dash with paperwork. Everything normal, except for the fact that the driver was nowhere to be seen. I pulled myself up into the cab and checked the sleeper compartment. Empty. The bedding was rumpled like someone had been sleeping there recently. There was a phone charger plugged in but no phone. A duffel bag with clothes. A photo taped to the wall showing a woman and 2 kids, but no driver. I backed out of the cab and stood in the parking lot. A truck driver doesn't just disappear. He'd gotten out for some reason, but where had he gone? The bathrooms were empty. The parking lot was empty. There was nowhere else to go except out into the open prairie, and why would anyone do that in the middle of the night? That's when I heard it again. That humming sound, coming from the facilities building. Louder now, pulsing in that irregular rhythm. I walked toward the sound. The hum grew louder with each step. It seemed to be coming from inside the walls, from the concrete itself. A deep vibration I could feel in my chest. I put my hand on the bathroom door and felt the vibration through the metal. The door was cold, much colder than it should have been. My breath fogged in the air, visible in the orange light from overhead. I pushed the door open. The humming stopped again, cut off suddenly. And in the silence that followed, I heard something else. A voice, faint, coming from one of the stalls. "Help!" I pulled my flashlight and moved toward the stalls. "Highway Patrol, where are you? Help me! I can't." The voice was coming from the last stall. The door was closed. I pushed it open slowly. Empty. The stall was empty. But the voice continued, seeming to come from the walls themselves. "Can't get out. Been here. Don't know how long. Sir, where are you? I can't see you. Tried to leave. Keep coming back. Same place, over and over." I backed out of the stall. This wasn't right. None of this was right. Voices coming from empty rooms. Figures on camera feeds that weren't actually there. Drivers disappearing from locked trucks. I needed to get backup, needed to call this in properly. But my radio was dead, and my cell phone had no signal. I was alone out here with something I didn't understand. I headed back to my patrol vehicle, walking quickly across the parking lot. The wind was still completely calm. The air was cold and still, and wrong. About halfway to my vehicle, I stopped. There was someone standing next to my patrol car. A man. He was facing away from me, looking at something in the vehicle's window. "Sir, step away from the vehicle." He didn't move, didn't acknowledge that he'd heard me. "Sir, this is the Highway Patrol. Step away from the vehicle now." Still nothing. I put my hand on my gun and started toward him. As I got closer, I could see he was wearing a jacket with patches on the shoulders. Truck driver. It had to be Marcus Godfrey, the missing driver from the semi. "Mr. Godfrey, Marcus Godfrey." The man turned around slowly, and I saw his face. It wasn't right. That's the only way I can describe it. His features were normal enough. Eyes, nose, mouth, all in the right places. But something about them was off. Like looking at a photograph that's been slightly out of focus. Like his face was vibrating at a frequency just beyond what the human eye could properly track. "Help," he said. His lips moved, but the voice seemed to come from somewhere else. "Help me. I've been here so long." "How long have you been here, Marcus?" "I don't know." Stopped to rest, went inside. Came back out and... His eyes darted around the parking lot. Everything was the same but different. Time doesn't move right here. "What do you mean time doesn't move right?" "I keep trying to leave. Get in my truck. Start driving. But I always end up back here. Same place, same parking spot, over and over." I pulled my radio, even though I knew it wouldn't work. Had to try anyway. Dead air. Just like before. "Okay, Marcus. Let's get you out of here. We'll figure this out. Come with me to my vehicle." He shook his head violently. "No. Can't. If I move too far from my truck, I end up back inside it. Sitting in the driver's seat, like I never left, been trying for, I don't know, hours, days? When did you stop here? What day was it? Tuesday, April 15th, around midnight. That was today, or technically yesterday, since it was now past midnight on the 16th. So he'd only been here a few hours at most. But he was acting like it had been much longer. Marcus, it's still April 16th, early morning. You've been here maybe 4 hours tops. His eyes went wide. No, that's not right. I've been trying to leave for... I've lived whole days here, watched the sun come up, watched it set, over and over. The sun hasn't come up yet, it's still night. You don't understand. Time loops here. I've done this same night 100 times, parked, went inside, came back out, tried to leave, ended up back in my truck, every time, every single time. I didn't know what to say to that. Either this man was having some kind of psychological break, or something genuinely impossible was happening at this rest area. And given what I'd seen on the security cameras, I was starting to believe it might be the latter. A light flickered behind me. I turned. The facility's building. The lights inside were flashing in a pattern. On and off, on and off. No pattern I could discern, just random flickering. It does that, Marcus said quietly. Every cycle. The lights start flickering. Then the humming starts. Then, he trailed off. Then what? Then I end up back in my truck, and it all starts over. The humming was starting again. That deep vibration coming from inside the building, growing louder. I could feel it in my bones now, could feel it making my teeth ache. We need to leave, both of us, right now. I grabbed Marcus's arm and started pulling him toward my patrol vehicle. Get in, we're driving out of here. He followed, stumbling slightly. We reached my vehicle and I opened the passenger door. Marcus climbed in and I ran around to the driver's side, started the engine, put it in gear. The radio crackled to life. Tessa's voice came through, crystal clear now. Unit 23, what is your status? I grabbed the mic. Dispatch, Unit 23. I have a situation here, requesting immediate backup at Continental Divide Rest Area. Unit 23, I'm not showing any situation reports from your location. What's the nature of your emergency? I have a civilian who's experiencing some kind of disorientation. Possible medical emergency. And there are anomalies at this location that require investigation. Copy, Unit 23. Nearest backup is approximately 45 minutes out. Do you require medical response? I looked at Marcus. He was staring straight ahead through the windshield, his hands gripping his knees. His lips were moving, but no sound was coming out. Affirmative, dispatch. Request medical response. 10-4, Unit 23. Medical is en route. Estimated arrival 30 to 40 minutes. I put the patrol vehicle in gear and started driving toward the exit. The rest area entrance was only about 200 feet away. Should have taken maybe 15 seconds to reach it, but we didn't reach it. I drove forward and the entrance got closer, and then suddenly we were back in the parking lot. Back in the same spot where we'd started. Like the last 10 seconds hadn't happened. Marcus was laughing now. A high, strained sound. See? See? I told you, you can't leave. None of us can leave. I tried again, accelerated hard, heading straight for the exit. Watched the entrance ramp approach. Watched it get closer. And then we were back in the parking lot. Same spot. Engine still running. Like we'd never moved. This isn't possible, I said. Marcus was rocking back and forth now. Possible, not possible, doesn't matter. We're stuck here, stuck in this loop, this same night, this same moment, forever. I looked at my watch. 2:41 a.m. I looked at the clock in my vehicle. 2:41 a.m. I tried the radio again. Dispatch, Unit 23. Tessa's voice responded immediately. Unit 23, what is your status? The exact same intonation. The exact same words. We were in a loop. Marcus was right. Somehow, impossibly, we were trapped in a loop at the Continental Divide rest area, and I had no idea how to break out of it. The humming from the facilities building grew louder. The lights flickered faster. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I started to understand that this night was going to last a lot longer than any night should. That this night might never end at all. I tried leaving the rest area 17 more times. Each attempt ended the same way. We'd drive toward the exit, get maybe halfway there, and then suddenly we were back in the parking lot. Same position, same moment, like the last 30 seconds had been erased. Marcus had stopped talking, just sat in the passenger seat, staring at nothing. I couldn't blame him. If he'd been experiencing this for what felt like days to him, the psychological toll must have been immense. On the 18th attempt, I tried something different. Instead of heading for the exit, I drove toward the back of the rest area, toward the open prairie. Maybe we could bypass whatever was keeping us trapped here by going around it. The patrol vehicle bumped over the curb and onto the dirt. I accelerated, heading east away from the facilities. The sagebrush scraped against the undercarriage. No roads out here, no paths, just open ground. I kept driving, 50 yards, 100 yards, 200 yards. The rest area was getting smaller in my rearview mirror. The orange glow from the sodium lights fading. We were making it. We were actually getting away. Then the engine died, just cut out completely. All the lights on the dash went dark. The vehicle coasted to a stop in the middle of nowhere. I turned the key. Nothing. Tried again. Dead. Like the battery had been disconnected. "It won't work," Marcus said quietly. I tried that too. Drove my rig as far as it would go. Engine died. When I tried to walk away on foot, I ended up back in the driver's seat. "How far did you get?" "Maybe a quarter mile. Maybe less. Hard to tell in the dark." I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the vehicle. The wind was still completely absent. The air was cold and heavy and wrong. I could see the rest area lights in the distance, that orange glow against the black sky. It looked impossibly far away, even though we'd only driven about 200 yards. "Stay here," I told Marcus. "I'm going to try something." I started walking, not toward the rest area, but perpendicular to it. South. If we couldn't go west toward the exit, or east into the prairie, maybe we could go around. Find an edge to whatever was holding us here. I walked for what felt like 10 minutes. The rest area stayed in view to my left, never seeming to get any closer or farther away. The ground under my feet was rough and uneven. Sagebrush caught at my pants. The stars overhead were bright and clear and utterly indifferent. I checked my watch. 2:41 a.m., same as it had been before. I kept walking, checked again 5 minutes later. 2:41 a.m. The second hand was moving. The minute hand was moving. But the time never changed. I turned back toward the patrol vehicle. It should have been visible, I hadn't walked that far, but I couldn't see it. Just darkness and sagebrush stretching in every direction. The rest area was still there to my left, glowing orange, but my vehicle was gone. "Marcus!" I called out. "Marcus, where are you?" No response. Just the sound of my own voice dying in the still air. I pulled my flashlight and started sweeping it across the prairie, looking for any sign of my patrol vehicle, any sign of Marcus. Nothing. Just empty ground. Then I saw them, footprints, leading back toward the rest area. My own footprints, I realized. I was following my own trail, but that didn't make sense. I'd been walking south. These prints led west. I followed them anyway, didn't have much choice, and as I followed them, the rest area got closer. Closer than it should have been, like the distance between us was collapsing. After about 5 minutes, I was standing in the parking lot again. My patrol vehicle was there, right where I'd left it. Engine running, lights on, like it had never died. Marcus was still in the passenger seat. When I climbed back in, he looked at me with dead eyes. "Told you," he said. I didn't respond, just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, trying to think, trying to figure out what was happening. There had to be a rational explanation, some kind of natural phenomenon that could explain time loops and spatial distortions. Maybe we'd been drugged somehow. Maybe there was a gas leak, something causing hallucinations. But that didn't explain both of us experiencing the same things. Didn't explain the security camera footage. Didn't explain any of this. The radio crackled. Tessa's voice came through. "Unit 23, what is your status?" Same words, same intonation. The loop starting over. I grabbed the mic. "Dispatch, this is Unit 23. I need you to listen to me very carefully. I'm trapped in some kind of temporal anomaly at the Continental Divide rest area. Time is repeating. I can't leave. Do you understand?" Static. Then Tessa's voice, but different this time. Slower. The words stretched out. "Unit 23, what is your status?" "Dispatch, do you copy? Something is wrong with this location. I need..." The radio cut out. When it came back, Tessa's voice was normal speed again. "Unit 23, I'm showing your GPS position as stationary at Continental Divide rest area. Have you completed your investigation?" "Negative. Dispatch, how long have I been at this location?" "Your last check-in was at 2:39 a.m. Current time is 2:41 a.m. You've been on scene for approximately 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I'd been here for what felt like at least 45 minutes. Maybe longer. But according to dispatch, according to official time, only 2 minutes had passed. Dispatch, my watch shows 2:41, but I've experienced significantly more time than that. I've been attempting to leave this location and have been unable to do so." A long pause. Then Tessa's voice, concerned now. "Unit 23, are you feeling all right? Do you need medical assistance?" "I'm fine, but there's something wrong with this place, with time at this place. I have a civilian here who's experiencing the same phenomenon. Marcus Godfrey, the truck driver. He claims he's been trapped here for days. Unit 23, stand by." More static. When the radio came back, it was a different voice. Male. Older. I recognized it as Sergeant Pryor, the night shift supervisor. "Merkham, this is Pryor. What's going on out there?" "Sergeant, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'm caught in some kind of time loop at this rest area. I can't leave. Every time I try to drive out, I end up back where I started." "Have you been injured? Hit your head? Carbon monoxide exposure in your vehicle?" "No, sir. I'm thinking clearly, and I'm not alone. There's a truck driver here experiencing the same thing." "Where is he now?" I looked at the passenger seat. Empty. Marcus was gone. He was just here, right here in my vehicle. "Merkham, I want you to shut off your engine and step outside. Take some deep breaths. I'm sending backup to your location. ETA 30 minutes. Sergeant, I need you to understand. Something is wrong at this location. Genuinely wrong. The security camera footage shows impossible things. Time isn't moving normally. I need... Just stay calm. Help is on the way." The radio went dead. I tried calling back but got no response. I looked at my watch. 2:41 a.m. still, always. I got out of the vehicle and looked around the parking lot. The RV was still there. The 3 trucks were still there. Everything exactly as it had been. But Marcus was gone, and I had no idea where. The facilities building caught my eye. The lights inside were flickering again, that same pattern, and the humming was starting, that deep vibration that made my bones ache. I walked toward the building. Didn't really want to, but I needed to understand what was happening, needed to find some kind of answer. The closer I got, the louder the humming became. By the time I reached the entrance, it was almost deafening. I pushed open the door to the men's room. The fluorescent lights were strobing now, flashing on and off so fast it was almost blinding. The sound was coming from everywhere, from the walls and the floor and the ceiling, a deep thrumming that I could feel in my chest. In the strobing light, I saw something on the wall, writing, scratched into the paint with something sharp. I moved closer, using my flashlight to read it. Help us. Been here forever. Time doesn't move. Can't leave. Please. The messages covered the wall. Dozens of them, different handwriting, different tools used to scratch the words. Some looked old, the paint around them yellowed and cracked. Others looked fresh. At the bottom, near the floor, I saw a message that made my blood run cold. Lorne Merkham. April 16th, 2:41 a.m., my name. Written in handwriting that looked like mine. But I hadn't written it. Hadn't scratched anything on this wall. The letters were crude, carved deep into the paint and plaster beneath. I backed away from the wall, backed out of the bathroom and into the parking lot. The humming was fading now. The lights in the building returning to normal. But that message stayed burned in my mind. My name. My name on that wall. Like I'd been here before, like I'd been trapped here before. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the wall before the lights completely normalized. The photo was blurry, corrupted by digital artifacts, but you could still make out the words. Still see my name at the bottom. I was about to head back to my vehicle when I noticed something. The elderly man from the RV was standing outside his vehicle, just standing there, looking toward the facilities building, looking directly at me. I walked over to him. "Sir, are you all right?" He turned to face me, and I stopped walking. His eyes were wrong. Not just unfocused or confused. Wrong. They were reflecting light in a way human eyes don't, like animal eyes caught in headlights. A flat, metallic shine. "Help," he said. His lips moved, but the voice seemed to come from behind him, from everywhere except his mouth. "Help me. I've been here so long." How long? Don't know. Days. Weeks. Doesn't matter. Time doesn't move right here. Just the same moment over and over. 2:41 a.m. Always 2:41 a.m. Do you know why? What's causing this? His head tilted to one side at an angle that was too sharp, too far, like his neck had no bones in it. Something underneath, something old. We built the rest area on top of it, didn't know, couldn't have known. On top of what? Deep time, where past and present and future all exist at once, where linear progression breaks down. We punched through. The foundation, the drilling. We opened something that should have stayed closed. That's not possible. The man's face twitched. A rapid flutter, like a TV image glitching. For just a moment I saw something else beneath the surface. Something that wasn't human. Then it was gone, and he was just an elderly man again. Possible, impossible, doesn't matter here. Here, everything is possible. Everything is impossible. All at once. Forever. He walked back to his RV, opened the door, stepped inside. The door closed behind him. I stood there for a moment, processing what he'd said. Deep time. Something underneath the rest area. An explanation that made no sense but somehow felt true anyway. My radio crackled again. But it wasn't Tessa's voice this time. It was my own voice, speaking words I'd never said. "Dispatch, this is Unit 23. I can't get out. I've tried everything. Whatever's here, it won't let me leave. Tell my family. Tell them I tried." I stared at the radio in my hand. That was my voice, my exact cadence, my inflection. But I hadn't said those words. "Unit 23, please confirm. Are you in distress?" That was Tessa, responding to words I hadn't said, words that had come from my radio and my voice. I keyed the mic. "Dispatch, that wasn't me. I didn't say that." "Unit 23, you're breaking up. Repeat." "I said that wasn't me. Someone is using my voice." "Unit 23, static, help, en route." The radio went dead again. I threw it down on the hood of my patrol vehicle in frustration. This wasn't getting me anywhere. I needed to think, needed to figure out a way to break this loop. I walked back to the facilities building and examined the exterior, looking for anything unusual, any sign of what might be underneath. The building was standard Department of Transportation construction, concrete block walls, metal roof, built maybe 20 years ago based on the wear patterns. But something caught my eye. Near the northwest corner, there was a crack in the foundation. Not unusual by itself. Concrete cracks. But this crack was too regular, too uniform, like it had been cut deliberately. I knelt down and ran my flashlight along it. The crack extended from ground level down into the earth. I couldn't see how deep it went, but there was air coming from it, cold air, much colder than the ambient temperature, and something else. A sound, very faint, like music, but not music I recognized. No melody, no rhythm, just tones that rose and fell in patterns that hurt to listen to. I put my ear close to the crack. The sound was louder, and underneath it, I could hear something else. Voices, multiple voices, all talking at once, all saying different things. Some of them were speaking English, some weren't. And one of them was my voice. I pulled back from the crack. My hands were shaking. Whatever was down there, whatever was underneath this rest area, it had my voice, had all our voices, was using them for purposes I couldn't begin to understand. A shadow fell across me. I looked up. Marcus Godfrey was standing there. But his eyes had that same reflective quality I'd seen in the elderly man, that same wrongness. "You're starting to understand," he said. "Good. Understanding is the first step." First step to what? To accepting, to giving in, to becoming part of the loop forever. I'm not giving in, I'm getting out of here. Marcus smiled. It wasn't a human expression. "That's what we all say, at first, but eventually you realize there is no getting out. There's only here, only now, only 2:41 a.m., forever and ever and ever." He walked away, not toward his truck, just away, into the darkness at the edge of the parking lot. I watched until he disappeared from view. I checked my watch, 2:41 a.m. Checked my phone, 2:41 a.m. Looked at the clock in my patrol vehicle, 2:41 a.m. The same moment, locked in place, and me along with it. I got on my radio one more time, tried to reach Tessa, tried to reach anyone, just got static. But underneath the static I could hear them now. The voices, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all speaking at once, all trapped here just like I was, and one of the voices was mine, calling out from the static, begging for help that would never come. I was starting to understand what Marcus had been trying to tell me, what the elderly man had tried to explain. We weren't just trapped in a time loop. We were trapped in all time loops. Every moment that had ever happened at this rest area, all layered on top of each other, all existing simultaneously. The truck driver who'd called in the report about strange lights. He hadn't escaped. He'd gotten away before the loop caught him. But everyone else who'd stopped here, everyone else who'd been here at the wrong time, they were all still here, still trapped, still experiencing the same endless moment. And now, I was one of them. I looked at the security camera above the facilities building. The red light was blinking, still recording. But recording what? The same moment over and over? Or different moments from different times all compressed into one? I walked over to my patrol vehicle and pulled up the camera feed on my MDT one more time. The footage was playing, showing the parking lot, showing my vehicle, showing me standing next to it. But there were other figures too, transparent, flickering in and out of view. Dozens of them, all in the same parking lot, all from different times. A woman in clothes from the 1980s. A man in a suit from the 1960s. A family in a station wagon from the 1950s. All trapped here, all existing in this same space, this same impossible moment. I was watching myself on the camera feed, watching me from 3 minutes ago, or 3 hours ago, or 3 days ago. Time had no meaning here. Past and present and future all bled together. On the screen, I saw myself walk toward the facilities building, saw myself open the bathroom door, saw myself read the writing on the wall, my name, my date, my time, 2:41 a.m. And then I saw something else, a figure standing behind me in the reflection on the bathroom mirror, a figure I hadn't seen when I was actually in there. A figure that looked like me, but wasn't quite right. The figure's mouth moved. I couldn't hear what it was saying on the silent security footage, but I could read its lips. "You're already gone." I looked up from the MDT screen, looked around the parking lot, empty, no one else visible. Just me and my vehicle, and the 3 trucks and the RV and the empty facilities building. But I could feel them, all the others who were trapped here, all the people who'd stopped at this rest area at the wrong time and had never left. They were here, in the spaces between moments, in the cracks in time, and I was joining them. My radio crackled one more time. This time it was Tessa's voice, but it sounded wrong, distorted, like it was coming from very far away or from underwater. "Unit 23, help is coming. Hold on." "How long?" I asked. "How long until help arrives?" 30 minutes. Backup is 30 minutes away." 30 minutes. But 30 minutes in what frame of reference? 30 minutes in the outside world might be hours, or days, or years inside this loop. Time didn't mean the same thing here. I could wait, could sit in my vehicle and wait for backup that might never arrive. Or I could try to understand what was happening, try to find a way out. I chose the latter, because sitting still waiting, that's what Marcus had done. That's what the elderly man had done. That's what everyone else who was trapped here had done. And they were all still here. I walked back to the crack in the foundation, the one with the cold air and the strange sounds coming from it. I knelt down and shined my flashlight into it. The beam disappeared into darkness. I couldn't see the bottom, but I could hear the voices more clearly now, and one of them was speaking directly to me. "Lorne," it said, my own voice. "Lorne, don't try to understand. Just accept. It's easier that way." "I'm not accepting anything," I said out loud. "I'm getting out of here. No one gets out. we're all here forever, all of us, trapped in the same moment, the same endless now. There has to be a way. There isn't. We've all tried, hundreds of us, thousands, all trying to escape, all failing, all staying. I stood up and backed away from the crack. The voice followed me, my own voice, speaking from the ground. You'll understand soon, you'll see. Time doesn't move here. We don't move, we just exist. Forever and ever. 2:41 a.m., always 2:41 a.m. I looked at my watch. The second hand was moving, tick, tick, tick. But the time never changed, never progressed. Just stayed locked at 2:41 and some number of seconds that kept resetting. I was trapped, truly, completely trapped, and I was starting to understand that there might not be a way out. The humming started again, louder than before. The lights in the facilities building began to strobe, and all around me I could see them now. The others, transparent figures, flickering in and out of visibility, all of them standing in the parking lot, all of them waiting, all of them trapped in the same endless moment at the Continental Divide rest area. And now I was one of them. I don't know how many times I tried to leave after that. Lost count. Maybe 50, maybe 100. Each attempt the same. Drive toward the exit, get halfway there. Suddenly back in the parking lot. Same position, same moment. 2:41 a.m., always 2:41 a.m. I tried variations. Drove fast, drove slow, tried backing out. Tried going in reverse the entire way, tried closing my eyes and just accelerating blindly. Nothing worked. Every single time, I ended up back where I started. Marcus was right. The elderly man was right. There was no leaving this place, but I wasn't ready to accept that yet. Couldn't accept it. Because accepting it meant admitting I'd be here forever. Meant admitting I'd never see my family again. Never finish my shift, never go home. So I kept trying, kept searching for answers, for some kind of explanation that would give me a way out. I examined every inch of the rest area, every crack in the pavement, every bolt on the facilities building, looking for anything unusual, anything that might explain what was happening. The crack in the foundation kept drawing me back, the one with the cold air and the voices. I'd covered it with a piece of cardboard from a trash can, trying to block out the sound, but I could still hear them, still hear my own voice mixed in with hundreds of others. Let me out. Please. Someone help. I've been here so long. Time stopped, everything stopped. Can't remember my name anymore. That last one scared me most. The idea that you could be here so long you'd forget who you were. Forget everything except this parking lot and these buildings and this same endless moment. I looked at my phone, tried to call out. No signal. Tried to access the internet, no connection. The phone's clock showed 2:41 a.m. The date showed April 16th. But I had no idea if that was accurate anymore. I opened my photo gallery. There were pictures from yesterday. My daughter's birthday party. She'd turned 7. We'd had cake. She'd been so happy. That was less than 24 hours ago in real time, but it felt like a lifetime ago now. I tried taking a new photo, pointed my phone at the parking lot and hit the button. The image that appeared on screen wasn't what I'd photographed. It showed the parking lot, yes, but filled with vehicles. Dozens of them, from different eras, different decades, all occupying the same space. And people, transparent figures, some in modern clothes, some in styles from years ago. All of them standing motionless. All of them staring at nothing. I lowered the phone and looked at the actual parking lot with my eyes. Empty, except for the 4 vehicles that had been here when I arrived. But the camera saw something different. saw all the other times compressed into one image. I took another photo, this time pointing at the facilities building. The image showed the building, but overlaid with other structures. I could see what looked like an older building underneath, and underneath that, something else. Stone. Ancient stone. Carved with symbols I didn't recognize. I zoomed in on the symbols. They seemed to shift and move even though they were in a static photograph. Looking at them made my eyes hurt. Made my head ache. Like my brain was trying to process something it wasn't equipped to understand. I put the phone away. Whatever those symbols were, whatever they meant, looking at them wasn't helping. The radio crackled. I'd stopped responding to it after the 10th or 15th loop. Stopped trying to explain my situation to Tessa or Sergeant Pryor. What was the point? They couldn't help me. Couldn't even understand what I was experiencing. But this time, the voice on the radio was different. It was Tessa, but she was saying something new. Unit 23, if you can hear me, I need you to listen carefully. We've been researching the location. There are historical records, incidents, people disappearing, going back decades. I grabbed the mic. Dispatch, I copy. What kind of incidents? Stand by, pulling up the file. Okay, first documented disappearance was in 1952. A family of 4. Stopped at what was then just a roadside pull-off. Never seen again. Vehicle was found abandoned. No sign of the occupants. How many disappearances total? 17 documented cases between 1952 and 2018. All at the same location. All with similar circumstances. Vehicles found, people gone. Why wasn't the area closed down? It was, temporarily. In 1974, after 3 disappearances in 1 year. But the investigation found no evidence of foul play. No natural hazards. The area was reopened in 1976. The rest area facilities were built in 1989. Tessa, there's something underneath this place. Something old. I found a crack in the foundation. There are voices coming from it. Static. Then Tessa's voice, concerned. Lauren, Sergeant Pryor wants to know if you've been feeling disoriented, confused. Any nausea or headaches? I'm not having a medical episode. I'm telling you what I'm experiencing. Time has stopped here. I'm trapped in a loop, and I'm not the only one. There are others, I can see them. More static, a new voice. Sergeant Pryor. Merkham, I need you to return to your vehicle and wait for backup. Do not approach any civilians. Do not enter any structures, just wait. Backup is almost there. How long? ETA 5 minutes. 5 minutes. In outside time, that meant something. In here, it meant nothing. But I went back to my vehicle anyway, sat in the driver's seat and waited. Watched my watch tick forward. 2:41:12. 2:41:13. 2:41:14. Then it jumped back. 2:41 o'clock. Starting over. The loop resetting itself. I looked at the rearview mirror. There was someone sitting in the back seat. I spun around. Empty. Nothing there. Looked back at the mirror. The figure was still visible. A woman. Young. Maybe mid-20s. She was looking directly at me through the mirror. Her mouth moved. No sound came out. But I could read her lips. Help us. I turned around again. Still nothing in the actual back seat. But in the mirror, she was there. Clear as day. Her eyes were wide. Desperate. She raised her hand and pressed it against the window from the inside. I could see the handprint appear on the glass. Could see the condensation from her breath. But when I reached back to touch where her hand was, there was nothing. Just cold glass. The woman pointed, out the window, toward the crack in the foundation. Then she faded, slowly becoming transparent until she was gone. But the handprint remained. A real, physical handprint on my back window. I got out of the vehicle and walked over to look at it. It was definitely there. Small hand, long fingers, the whorls and ridges of a fingerprint visible in the condensation. Real, tangible, evidence that something impossible had just happened. I heard an engine, turned toward the entrance. Headlights were approaching. Finally, backup was arriving. I felt a surge of relief. I wasn't alone anymore. The vehicle pulled into the rest area. It was a highway patrol cruiser, identical to mine. It parked near the facilities building and the driver's door opened. I walked toward it, raising my hand in greeting. "Am I glad to see you?" The trooper who stepped out was wearing our uniform, had our patches, our badge, but something was wrong with him. His movements were too stiff, too mechanical, like he was a marionette being controlled by someone who didn't quite understand how humans moved. "Unit 23, the trooper said. "What is your status?" "I'm trapped here. Have been for..." I checked my watch. Still 2:41 a.m. I don't know how long, hours maybe, days. Time isn't working right. The trooper turned his head to look at me. The movement was wrong, too fast, and his eyes had that same reflective quality I'd seen in Marcus and the elderly man, like they weren't really eyes at all. "There is no trap," the trooper said. "There is only here, only now, only this moment." I backed away. "Who are you?" "I am Unit 23. I am you. I am everyone who has ever been here. We are all the same now, all part of the same moment, the same eternal now. You're not backup. You're not real. Real, unreal. The distinction is meaningless here. We exist. That is all that matters." The trooper started walking toward me, that same stiff, mechanical gait. I backed away faster, reached for my gun. My hand found empty air. I looked down. My holster was empty. My gun was gone. "You won't need that," the trooper said. "There's nothing to fight, nothing to resist. Just acceptance. Just surrender. Just joining us in the eternal now." I turned and ran. Didn't know where I was going. Just away. Away from that thing that looked like a trooper but wasn't. Away from the rest area and the loop and the impossible moment that never ended. I ran past my vehicle, past the RV, past the trucks, out into the open prairie beyond the parking lot, running in the dark, stumbling over sagebrush, the cold air burning in my lungs. Behind me, I heard the trooper's voice, calm, unhurried. "You can't leave. No one leaves. Everyone who comes here stays. Forever." I kept running. 50 yards, 100 yards, 200 yards. The rest area was falling behind. I was making it. I was getting away. Then the ground disappeared. I was falling. Through darkness, through nothing. No sense of up or down, no wind, no sound. Just falling through an endless void. And then I hit ground. Hard, knocked the wind out of me. I lay there gasping, trying to orient myself. Slowly, I pushed myself up. I was in the parking lot, back at the rest area, lying on the cold asphalt, like I'd never left. The fake trooper was standing over me, looking down with those wrong eyes. "You see," he said, "there is no leaving, there is only here." I scrambled backward, away from him, got to my feet. My body ached from the fall. I looked around. Everything was back where it started. My vehicle, the other vehicles, all in their same positions. And standing around the perimeter of the parking lot, I could see them now, the others, dozens of them, all transparent, all flickering, all watching me. The family from the 1950s, the lone driver from the 1960s, the young couple from the 1970s. More, So many more. All of them trapped here. All of them part of the same endless loop. And now I was one of them. Why? I asked the fake trooper. Why does this happen here? Because this is where time broke, he said. Where the foundation cracked. Where past and present and future all collapsed into one point. This is the wound in reality, and we are all trapped in it. There has to be a way to fix it, to close the wound. There is no fixing it, it simply is, and we are all part of it now, forever. I looked at the others, the transparent figures standing silent and still. Are they conscious? Do they know what's happening? Some do, some don't, some forgot long ago. Time erodes everything, even memory, even self. Eventually, you'll forget too. Forget who you were, forget that there was ever anything other than this moment. No, I won't forget. I won't become like them. The trooper smiled. It wasn't a human expression. That's what they all said at first. But time here is different, patient, relentless. It wears you down, wears away everything, until only the moment remains. My radio crackled. Tessa's voice came through, but it was layered now. Multiple Tessas speaking at once, from different times, different calls, all compressed into one transmission. Unit 23, status, help coming, hold on, can't find you, GPS showing, different location, reality, breaking down. I grabbed the radio. Tessa, if you can hear me, don't send anyone else here. Close the rest area, barricade it. Don't let anyone stop here, do you understand? Can't. Signal breaking up. Lorne, where are you? I'm here. I'm trapped here. Everyone who comes here gets trapped. You have to close it down. Trying to help. Backup is almost there. No, don't send backup. They'll just get stuck too. Close the rest area. Close it now. The radio went dead. No static this time. Just silence. I tried keying the mic again, but got no response. The radio was completely dead. I looked at the fake trooper. How long have you been here? I don't know. Time has no meaning. I could have been here an hour, a year, a century. There's no way to tell. But you remember being a trooper. You remember the job. I remember the idea of it, the concept. But the details are fading. Soon, I won't remember that either. Won't remember anything except this parking lot, this moment, this eternal now. I thought about that. About losing myself piece by piece. About forgetting my name, my family, my life. Everything that made me who I was. Slowly eroded by endless time until I was just another transparent figure standing in a parking lot. Empty, forgotten. I couldn't let that happen, wouldn't let that happen. I walked back to the crack in the foundation, the one with the voices, the one with the cold air. I knelt down and looked into it. Could still see nothing, just darkness stretching down forever. What are you doing? The fake trooper asked. Finding a way out. There is no way out through there. That's the wound, the break. Going down there will only make things worse. Worse than being trapped here forever? Yes, much worse. Down there is where time completely breaks down, where all moments exist at once, where you lose even the illusion of sequential experience. Up here, at least, you can maintain some sense of self. Down there, you dissolve completely. I stood up, backed away from the crack. Maybe he was right. Maybe going down there was a bad idea, but I had to do something, had to try something. I looked at my watch, 2:41 a.m., looked at the sky. Still dark, still night. No sign of dawn, no progression of time at all. How long had I actually been here? Minutes, hours, days? There was no way to know. The loop kept resetting, kept bringing me back to this same moment. But was each loop a new moment? Or was it all the same moment repeated infinitely? I didn't know, couldn't know. That kind of thinking led to madness. I walked back to my patrol vehicle and sat in the driver's seat. Needed to think. Needed to figure this out. There had to be something I was missing. Some detail, some clue that would show me the way out. I pulled up the security camera footage on my MDT again. Watched the feeds from all 4 cameras. The parking lot, the entrance, the facilities, all showing the same thing. Empty spaces filled with transparent figures. People who weren't really there, but weren't really gone either. And then I saw something. On the entrance camera, a vehicle was approaching, a semi-truck. Different from the ones already parked here. It was pulling into the rest area entrance. I watched it drive in, watched it park in the truck area, watched the driver get out and stretch. He walked toward the facilities building, disappeared from the entrance camera's view, appeared on the facilities camera, entered the bathroom, and never came out. I watched the timestamp, watched time progress. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. The driver never emerged from the bathroom. The truck sat in its parking space, engine idling. Then the timestamp jumped, backward, from 2:46 a.m. to 2:41 a.m., and the truck was gone. The parking space was empty, like the truck had never existed. But then, 30 seconds later, the truck appeared again, pulling in, parking in the same spot, the driver getting out, walking to the bathroom, disappearing inside, the loop. I was watching someone else get caught in the loop, in real time, or whatever passed for real time here. I jumped out of my vehicle and ran toward the truck. It was there, physically there, engine running. I pounded on the side panel. "Don't go inside. Stay out of the bathroom." No one responded. The truck sat silent. I ran to the facilities building, burst through the bathroom door. "Sir, are you in here?" Empty. All the stalls were empty. But I could hear something. A voice, faint, coming from the walls. "Help me. Where am I? I just stopped for a minute. Just needed to use the bathroom. Where am I?" It was the truck driver, trapped inside the loop, already losing his place in time. "Can you hear me?" I called out. "If you can hear me, try to find your way out. Try to remember who you are." I can't. Everything is the same, over and over. Where's my truck? I need to get back on the road. My delivery. I'm going to be late. Listen to me. Focus on my voice. You're trapped in a time loop at the Continental Divide rest area. You need to hold on to who you are. Don't let the loop erase you." "Loop? What loop? I just stopped to use the bathroom. I need to get back to my truck." The voice was fading, getting fainter. He was slipping away, becoming part of the loop, part of the eternal now. Another transparent figure who would stand in the parking lot forever. I ran back outside. The truck was gone. The parking space was empty. And standing where the truck had been was a transparent figure, a man in a trucker's jacket, looking around confused. Then he faded, became part of the background, part of the endless collection of trapped souls. Another one lost, another person who'd made the mistake of stopping here, of being in the wrong place at the wrong moment. I looked at the fake trooper. He was still standing in the parking lot, watching me with those empty eyes. "How many?" I asked. "How many people are trapped here?" "Hundreds, maybe thousands. Going back decades, maybe longer. They all exist here simultaneously, all part of the same collapsed moment. And there's really no way out?" There is one way, he said slowly. What? Tell me. You have to stop existing in time. Stop trying to move forward. Stop resisting the loop. Accept that you are part of the eternal now. Surrender to it completely. And then, maybe, you'll slip through. Fall between the moments. Find your way back to linear time. That doesn't make sense. Nothing here makes sense. This place is beyond sense, beyond logic, beyond physics. This is where reality breaks down, and the only way through is to stop being part of reality. I stared at him. You're saying I have to let go of who I am? Yes, completely. Stop being Lorne Merkham, Wyoming Highway Patrol. Stop being a person with a history and a future. Just exist. Just be. Nothing more. And if I do that, I'll get out? Maybe. Or maybe you'll just dissolve completely. Become nothing. There's no way to know, but it's the only option I've found. The only possible way out. I thought about it. About letting go of everything. My identity. My memories. My sense of self. Becoming nothing so I could become something again. It sounded insane, but then again, everything about this situation was insane. I looked at my watch one more time. 2:41 a.m. The second hand ticking forward and then jumping back. Forward and back. Forever. I had a choice to make. Keep resisting and slowly fade into a transparent figure like all the others. Or try what the fake trooper suggested. Let go, surrender, and maybe, just maybe, find a way out. I didn't know which option was worse, but I knew I had to decide soon. Because I could already feel it. The erosion, the slow wearing away of who I was. My memories of my daughter's birthday were getting hazier. My sense of what day it was, what month it was, slipping away. Time here was patient, but it was also hungry. And it was eating me alive. I sat in my patrol vehicle and tried to remember my daughter's name. It should have been easy, should have been automatic, but the name kept slipping away from me, like trying to hold water in my hands. I could almost grasp it, almost say it, but then it would dissolve and I'd be left with nothing. I looked at my phone, at the photo from her birthday party. She was smiling, blowing out candles, 7 candles. I knew she was 7, knew she was my daughter. But her name... Sarah. No, that wasn't right. Shannon, no, something else. Something I should know. The erosion was accelerating. The loop was eating away at me faster now. Soon, I wouldn't remember having a daughter at all. Wouldn't remember having a life outside this parking lot. Outside this moment. 2:41 a.m. Always 2:41 a.m. I got out of the vehicle and walked to the center of the parking lot. The fake trooper was still there, standing motionless. Around the perimeter, I could see all the others. The transparent figures, hundreds of them now that I could see them clearly, all trapped, all slowly forgetting who they'd been. I want to try, I said to the fake trooper. What you described, letting go, I want to try it. He turned those empty eyes toward me. Are you certain? There's no coming back from it. Once you let go, you either slip through or you dissolve completely. There's no middle ground. I'm certain. Tell me what to do. Sit down. Right here in the center. I sat on the cold asphalt. The fake trooper came and stood behind me. Close your eyes. Stop thinking about who you are. Stop holding on to your memories, your identity, your sense of self. Just let it all go. Become nothing, become empty. I closed my eyes, tried to do what he said, but it was harder than I thought. Every time I tried to empty my mind, thoughts would rush in. Memories, concerns, questions. My brain wouldn't shut off. "You're resisting," the fake trooper said. "You're still holding on. You have to truly let go. Surrender everything." I tried again, focused on my breathing. In and out, in and out. Tried to stop thinking, stop being, just exist as empty space, and slowly, gradually, I felt something shift. My sense of self was loosening. The boundaries between me and the world around me were getting fuzzy. I couldn't feel where I ended and the air began. Couldn't feel my body, couldn't feel anything except a vast emptiness. I was dissolving. "That's it," the fake trooper said. His voice sounded distant now, like it was coming from very far away. "Let it happen. Don't fight it." I let go more. Let go of my name, my history, my memories, everything that made me Lorne Merkham, everything that made me human. Just let it all slip away into the void. And then I was nothing. No thoughts, no awareness, no sense of existence, just emptiness, just void. I don't know how long I stayed in that state. Time had no meaning there. It could have been seconds, could have been years, could have been forever. But then something changed. I felt a pull, like a current in water, something drawing me forward, not forward in space, but forward in time. Linear time, sequential time, time that moved in one direction instead of looping back on itself. I followed the pull, let it draw me along, felt myself moving through the void towards something, towards somewhere. And then I opened my eyes. I was sitting in my patrol vehicle, engine running, heater on, the radio was crackling with normal traffic, dispatch talking to various units, routine calls, nothing unusual. I looked at my watch, 3:17 a.m. Not 2:41, not the loop. Actual time, moving forward. I looked out the windshield. I was parked on the shoulder of I-80, about 5 miles east of the Continental Divide rest area. No idea how I'd gotten here. No memory of driving. But I was out, I'd escaped. I grabbed the radio. "Dispatch, Unit 23. Tessa's voice came back immediately. "Unit 23, go ahead." "What's my status? Where have I been for the last... How long has it been since my last check-in?" "Your last check-in was at 2:39 a.m. when you were en route to Continental Divide rest area. You've been off radio for approximately 38 minutes. I was just about to send someone to check on you." 38 minutes. That's all it had been in outside time. 38 minutes. But I'd experienced what felt like hours, maybe days, trapped in that loop. "Unit 23, are you all right? Do you need assistance?" I stopped. Was I all right? I'd just experienced something impossible. Had been trapped in a time loop, had nearly dissolved into nothing, but I'd made it out. I was here, I was real, I was moving forward in time again. "I'm fine, dispatch. I had some difficulty at the rest area. Possible equipment malfunction. I'm clear now and resuming patrol." "Copy, Unit 23. Do you want to file an incident report about the equipment issue?" "I'll file it at end of shift." 10-4. I sat there for a moment, just breathing, just feeling the normalcy of it all. The radio chatter, the hum of the engine, the cold air seeping in through the door seals. All of it normal, all of it real, all of it moving forward in time the way it should. I looked in my rearview mirror. The back seat was empty. No mysterious figure, no handprint on the window, just an empty back seat in a patrol vehicle. I put the car in gear and started driving east, away from the rest area, away from that place where time broke down. I had no intention of ever going back there. But about 10 miles down the road, curiosity got the better of me. I pulled over and accessed the security camera feeds on my MDT, pulled up the Continental Divide rest area cameras. The footage showed an empty parking lot. No vehicles, no transparent figures, just empty asphalt, and the facilities building and those orange sodium lights buzzing in the darkness. According to the timestamp, it was 3:23 a.m. Normal time, linear time. But then I noticed something. In the corner of the facility's camera feed, near the door to the men's room, there was a figure, barely visible, transparent, standing motionless. I zoomed in on the image. The figure was wearing a highway patrol uniform, and even though the image was grainy and indistinct, I could make out enough details to recognize the face. It was me. I was still there, a part of me, trapped in the loop, standing in that parking lot forever, experiencing the same moment over and over. I'd escaped, but I'd also stayed behind. Some version of me, some fragment, was still caught in the eternal now, would always be caught there. I closed the MDT and drove on, tried not to think about it, tried to focus on the road, on my patrol, on the normal routine of the job. But I couldn't stop thinking about the others, all those transparent figures, all those people trapped in the loop. Marcus Godfrey, the elderly man from the RV, the truck driver I'd watched get caught in real time, the family from the 1950s. All of them still there, still trapped, still experiencing the same moment forever. And there was nothing I could do about it. Over the next few weeks, I tried to report what had happened, filed incident reports, talked to Sergeant Pryor, even reached out to the Department of Transportation about the rest area. Everyone was polite, everyone listened, but I could see it in their eyes. They thought I'd had some kind of breakdown, some stress-induced episode. Maybe carbon monoxide exposure. Maybe just exhaustion. No one believed that time had actually stopped, that I'd been trapped in a loop, that there were hundreds of people caught in some kind of temporal anomaly at the Continental Divide rest area. The official explanation was that I'd experienced a brief period of confusion, possibly due to fatigue. I'd driven away from the rest area after finding nothing unusual and had simply lost track of time. It happened, especially on night shifts. The rest area stayed open. No investigation was launched. No warnings were posted. Travelers continued to stop there, use the facilities, stretch their legs, move on. Most of them, anyway. But sometimes, I'd check the security camera feeds. Late at night when I couldn't sleep, I'd pull up the Continental Divide cameras on my personal computer and watch. The parking lot was usually empty. Sometimes there'd be a vehicle or two, sometimes none. Normal rest area activity. But occasionally, in the corner of the frame, I'd see them. The transparent figures, standing motionless, barely visible. Easy to miss if you weren't looking for them. And their numbers were growing. I kept count in a notebook I kept locked in my desk at home. Every time I saw a new figure appear on the camera feeds, I'd mark it down. By the end of the first month, I'd counted 3 new ones. By the end of the second month, 5 more. People were still getting trapped there, still stopping at the wrong moment, in the wrong place and never leaving. I tried to warn people. Posted anonymously on travel forums, on trucker message boards. Said the Continental Divide rest area was dangerous. Said people should avoid it. But no one paid attention. A few people called me paranoid. Most just ignored me. How do you warn people about something impossible? How do you tell them that time breaks down at a rest area on I-80? That if they stop there at the wrong moment, they'll be trapped forever in an endless loop? You can't. Because it sounds insane. So people kept stopping there, and some of them never left. Not really. They drove away, went home, continued their lives. But a part of them stayed behind, a fragment, a ghost, trapped in the eternal now. I know because I'm one of them. I escaped, yes. I'm here. I'm real. I'm living my life. But I also never left. Part of me is still sitting in that patrol vehicle at 2:41 a.m. Still trying to understand what's happening. Still slowly forgetting who I am. And sometimes, late at night, I can feel it. That other version of me, trapped in the loop. I can feel his confusion, his fear, his slow dissolution into nothing. I've thought about going back. About trying to help him, help the others. But I know it wouldn't work. Once you're caught in the loop, you can't be rescued from the outside. The only way out is the way I found. Letting go completely. Becoming nothing so you can become something again. And most people can't do that. Can't surrender their identity, their sense of self. They hold on too tight. And so, they stay trapped. Forever. My daughter's name is Emma. I remember now. It took me 3 days after escaping to remember it, but I did. Emma, 7 years old, loves chocolate cake, has my eyes. But sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I've forgotten again. Forgotten her name, forgotten my own name, forgotten everything except that parking lot and those orange lights and the eternal moment of 2:41 a.m. Then it comes back. Usually, most times, but not always. And I know that someday it might not come back at all. That the loop is still pulling at me, still trying to drag me back, still eating away at the parts of me that escaped. The Department of Transportation issued a report about the Continental Divide rest area. They'd done a structural inspection after I filed my incident reports. Found the crack in the foundation. The one I'd found that night. The one with the voices. They sealed it with concrete. Said it was just normal settling. Normal thermal expansion and contraction. Nothing to worry about. They reinforced the foundation and declared the facility safe. But I know better. You can't seal a wound in reality with concrete. You can't fix broken time with rebar and mortar. All they did was cover it up, make it less visible. The break is still there. The collapse is still happening. And people are still getting trapped. I requested a transfer, got assigned to a different patrol area. Nowhere near I-80. Nowhere near the Continental Divide. But it doesn't matter. Distance doesn't protect you. The loop exists outside of normal space, outside of normal time. If it has a hold on you, it can reach you anywhere. I see them sometimes, in reflections, in mirrors, the other versions of myself, the fragments that are still trapped. They're standing in that parking lot, staring at nothing, slowly fading, slowly forgetting, and I wonder if the me that's sitting here typing this is real, or if I'm just another fragment, another ghost, another echo of someone who got trapped at the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe I never escaped. Maybe I'm still sitting in that patrol vehicle at 2:41 a.m. Maybe this entire life, this entire existence, is just a dream I'm having while trapped in the loop, a fantasy my mind created to cope with eternal imprisonment. There's no way to know for sure. That's the cruelest part. Even if you escape, you can never be certain you're really free. The loop could be creating the illusion of freedom, could be making you think you got away while you're still trapped. 2:41 a.m. I check my watch sometimes, multiple times a day, making sure it's showing different times, making sure I'm moving forward. But every time I check, there's a moment of fear. A moment where I'm terrified I'll look down and see 2:41, see the second hand jumping backward, see the loop reasserting itself. So far, it hasn't happened. So far, Time keeps moving forward. But I know it's only a matter of time. The loop is patient. It can wait. And eventually, it will pull me back. Pull all of us back. Tessa called me last week, asked if I'd heard about the incident at the Continental Divide rest area. My blood ran cold. What incident? A trooper went there to investigate a suspicious vehicle report. Same as you did. He's been missing for 3 days. Missing? His patrol vehicle was found at the rest area. Engine running, lights on, but no sign of him. Search and rescue has been looking, but she trailed off. It's like he just vanished. I knew what happened. He'd gotten trapped, just like I had. Just like everyone else who stopped there at the wrong moment. He was sitting in his vehicle right now, experiencing 2:41 a.m. forever, trying to understand, trying to escape. Slowly forgetting who he was. They're going to close the rest area, Tessa continued. Finally, after all these years of incidents, they're finally going to shut it down. Good, I said, but I knew it wouldn't matter. Closing the rest area wouldn't close the break in time. Wouldn't fix the wound in reality. It would just make it less accessible, but the loop would still be there, still trapping people, still eating away at time itself. And the fragments that were already caught, all those transparent figures standing in that parking lot, they'd still be there, still trapped, still experiencing the same moment forever, including me. The version of me that never escaped, that's still sitting in a patrol vehicle, looking at a watch that always reads 2:41 a.m., still trying to remember his daughter's name. I've written this account down, every detail I can remember, everything that happened that night. Not because I think anyone will believe it, but because I need to remember, need to hold on to the knowledge that it happened, that it was real, because the erosion hasn't stopped. The loop still has a hold on me, and I can feel it pulling me back, pulling me toward that parking lot, that eternal moment. My daughter's name is Emma. I have to keep reminding myself of that, because sometimes I forget. Sometimes I wake up and I can't remember having a daughter at all. Can't remember anything except orange lights and cold asphalt and a watch that never moves past 2:41. If you're reading this, if you're traveling through Wyoming on I-80, do yourself a favor. Don't stop at the Continental Divide rest area, not even if it's open, not even if you need to use the bathroom, not even if you're exhausted and need to rest. Just keep driving. Get gas somewhere else. Use a different rest area. Don't take the chance. Because if you stop there at the wrong moment, you'll never leave. Not really. Part of you will stay behind. Trapped in time. Trapped in that endless loop. And someday, someone might see you on a security camera. A transparent figure standing motionless in a parking lot. Barely visible. Easily dismissed as a glitch in the footage. But you'll know. You'll be aware. You'll be experiencing every second of that eternal moment. Watching the same watch tick forward and jump back. Watching yourself try to escape over and over. Watching yourself slowly forget who you are. That's the real horror. Not the trapping, but the awareness. The knowledge that you're caught. That you'll be caught forever. That there's no rescue coming. No escape except to surrender everything you are and hope that's enough. I escaped, but I also never left. And I'm not sure which version of me is writing these words right now. The one who got away, or the one who's still trapped? Maybe both. Maybe neither. Maybe the loop creates infinite versions and we're all real, and none of us are. I don't know anymore. All I know is this. Time broke at the Continental Divide rest area. Reality cracked. And anyone who goes there risks falling through that crack into an endless moment that never progresses and never ends. I check my watch, 4:37 p.m. Time is moving. I'm okay. I'm real. I'm here. But tonight, when I close my eyes, I'll be back in that parking lot, standing in the orange light, watching a watch that reads 2:41 a.m., trying to remember my daughter's name. And I'll wonder, like I do every night, if this waking world is the dream, or if the loop is the only thing that's real.